Which is currently the best electric premium SUV? The German premium manufacturers were late to the party and have built their electric SUVs on existing ICE platforms so far. So they can rely on proven stuff on the one hand, but have disadvantages like a transmission tunnel and space losses on the other hand. The Audi e-tron is both available as the e-tron SUV and the sportier shaped Audi e-tron Sportback, somewhat an electrified Audi Q8. The Mercedes EQC is rather an electrified Mercedes GLC, and the latest BMW iX3 is the electrified BMW X3. So lengthwise, EQC and iX3 are somewhat equal with over 4.70 m or over 186 inches, whereas the Audi e-tron is a little longer at 4.90 m or 193 inches. And the Tesla Model X is the longest one at 5.05 m or 199 inches. The Tesla is the EV from scratch. BMW will however follow with a direct competitor on the pure EV platform with the X5 size BMW iX. But so far, let's take a look at these competitors here. They are all starting at around 70,000 euros or dollars, with the exception that the Tesla is 20k euros more expensive in Europe. However, with the extra equipment, the Germans are at least as expensive, if not more expensive. Let's take a detailed look at exterior, interior, and the driving experience of all four of these electric SUVs. And also tell us in the comment sections later on which one is your favorite EV SUV, and if you want, also explain why. Let's go. Bit by bit, BMW is presenting their all-electric models besides the older BMW i range. Now the existing cars are being electrified and they run just from the same assembly line as the combustion engine models. And here today we have the BMW iX3 for you, the electrified BMW X3 in our driving part, but of course a tour on exterior, interior, and then the electrified driving experience. As you know, in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. Sometimes it's strange as for the strategy of the automotive manufacturers. Volkswagen AG began with electrifying their existing vehicles, then now went on to a purely electric platform. BMW Group started with pure electric platforms, separate like BMW i3 and so on, and now they went the other way and just produced the very same vehicles like BMW X3 here with combustion engine, same platform, also then as the all-electric version. Yeah, you can't really say what's wrong or what's right. It's more about the volume of cars, the number of cars you build, what probably makes more sense. We'll see who will succeed even more. The frontier of the BMW iX3, you can see almost closed front double kidney in this new electric style. Then blue is the color, and yeah, for me, Thomas Blue favorite. Really cool, especially here with these accentuations in the inside of the kidney. We also have a dark blue color here for today. Headlamps standard with LED, optional the adaptive LED lights. They are also right here, and then they also have a more sophisticated daytime running light. So overall, it does not look too different from normal X3, more really, with this closed front grille look. But I think, it works. Or what's your take on it? The length is at 4.73 m, 15'5" or 186 inches, the same as the combustion engine BMW X3. They are different wheels, either 19 or 20 inch, and both in an aerodynamic style. You can see here, these are the optional 20-inch wheels. Then you have special eye accentuations, like here, BMW i is still the electric brand, and a blue contrast here, bright blue contrast in the lower area. So this gives, a little unique styling. Still the crossover wheel arches, and then the classic building formula of the X3 with the upright windows. That also gives you a good roundabout visibility. Very interesting paint here, by the way, if you look closely, and you can see almost like sparkling in the paint. Really interesting. Technology-wise, of course, all electric means we have a big battery pack then in here, and it's really in the lower center of the vehicle, and this brings the center of gravity really way lower than with the normal vehicle, about 7.5 centimeters or 3 inches lower, and this then ensures a more sporty driving characteristics, although there's more weight. Soon more to that in the driving part. How will we experience that actually? This will be very exciting. But what do you think here about the styling of the EV version? This is the battery pack here. Yeah, it's a dummy sample. 80 kilowatt hours gross, 74 kilowatt hours net capacity. And this is supposed to give you an official range of 460 kilometers or 285 miles. And recharging here, AC and DC. Really nice covers here for both, and also like, a soft pad behind that, so that's very well done. 11 kilowatt AC charging, 150 kilowatt DC fast charging is possible, and they also feature a heat pump here in the iX3, and they claim that this is overall bringing 30% more efficiency if you compare it to the BMW i3. And what does the heat pump do? It doesn't put your range higher or something, but the thing is that it reduces the effect that the range gets reduced in winter times. So that's what the heat pump is actually doing. It is again increasing the efficiency, that you have less range losses. And BMW also calculated the efficiency factors or percentages when you think about what energy you put in the first place and what is actually translated into motion then. And for the iX3 it's about 93%, and for the comparable combustion engine it's less than 40%. And that doesn't only count for the BMW X3 versus iX3, but also in general about electric vehicles versus combustion engines. The electric vehicles are just more efficient from translating the initial power than into the power you set into motion. Really interesting. Then here at the rear you can see design-wise 3-dimensional tail lamps, but that's also normal for this X3 generation. Special for the iX3 is, you have these like diffuser style blue accentuations in the lower part. Of course, no exhaust, and these were criticized a little bit. I've seen in the comments initially, but I think it's also quite cool. Here also blue ring about the around the BMW logo. We can also see it in the front. I think it just adds some more unique styling here to the iX3. By the way, 286 horsepower is the peak output, 6.8 seconds is the acceleration figure to 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. That's a little bit slower than the comparable BMW X3 30i, but still, definitely reasonably powered this vehicle. And the top speed, of course, all electric, is electric only, 180 kilometers an hour or 110 miles per hour, and rear-wheel drive only, so that stands also for a sporty BMW SUV. And last thing here for the numbers as for the rear, it does have a towing capacity, somewhat limited, 750 kilograms or about 1,650 pounds. And here we also have a white vehicle for you, where these blue contrasts are even more prominent. But if you say now, wait a minute, I just want to have my iX3 look the very same as in the X3, besides of the close kidney and so on, you can also depict the blue contrast and have it just in the frozen gray. This is, by the way, also standard if you pick a different color, for example with the red color, because BMW said red and blue doesn't mix that well. So with the red vehicle, for example, you have these accentuations then in frozen gray. Or then, as I said, you can just depict it also here for the white or for the black vehicle if you want to have a more plain, not so special look. Because here, especially, for example, with the white vehicle, the blue accentuations are really strong also again in the rear. For me personally, I found it just very cool in styling because it's actually unique and also signalizes that you drive something different than an X3 combustion engine. But maybe you'd think about it differently, so I would like to hear you in the comments if you would go or stick with these contrasts, or if you would actually depict them and go for a more plain look. Here once again the blue ring here around the BMW logo. So I found the styling really very beautiful. To me the most beautiful X3, but what's your take? And here the frunk is no frunk, so there's no real storage space under the front hood. That would have been cool, for example, for charging cable or something. They just decided to have it like as a full cover. Then, yeah, whatever, nothing to show you here. Then inside, let's check out the door closing sound. Oh, sounds quite good. Then here Sensatec top parts, soft touch, nice interior here with a matte aluminum style, but of course not real aluminum here. And then door handles, open, close, X logo. This is also a beautiful detail. You also have reasonable door pockets. And then the interior of the iX3 is not too different. Here again the blue accentuation around the logo. You can also see it here around the shifting lever. As for the seats, there are normal seats and sport seats available, and standard would actually be a Sensatec animal-free cover in black or brown. It almost looks the same as it is right here, also with these patches here, but this is the optional animal skin surface, and the only difference you see there, this has like a double stitching here, which the Sensatec seat would not have, but you really have to know that to see then or feel the difference. Comfort is actually quite good. In the X3 you already have a sophisticated SUV seating position. The BMW X1, is meanwhile also an SUV, not only a crossover anymore, but here the X3 definitely gives you like this grown-up SUV feeling already. So a nice and comfortable seating position. Steering wheel up and down, in and out, good smooth process. And the good thing here about the X3 is it's not as large as the X5, but already gives you a lot of comfort and a lot of space and so on. So I think it's, in a lot of ways a good compromise. 1.86 m or 6'1", still leaves enough headroom, even if you have this optional panoramic roof right here. It's not properly powered yet, the car at the moment, but you can also open it. It has actually quite wide opening. And here, different interior color. However, this is again the animal skin material. And there's also a seat form change possible. So this is the sport seat. We also seen it with the black seats here today. And the Sensatec I've been talking about is only available for the base comfort seat. So here the sport seat, a little bit stronger bolstering here. Sadly, these are not available with the Sensatec, so BMW here in this case did not really understand what it means to be more sustainable with the electric vehicle. So only Sensatec for the comfort base seats. They will give you a little bit more comfort. These here are a little bit sportier. Interior overview, typical X3, soft touch dashboard. Then here this infotainment screen is like this popped up, but it's very good to see. You here get standard for the iX3, the otherwise optional BMW Live Cockpit Professional, 10.25 inch on the right, 12.3 inch on the left as for the screens, and OS 7, operating system 7 from the BMW, features Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and both wireless now. So soon more deals to the screens. Steering wheel with a good size, right side for the volume, and nice these galvanized buttons and nice clicking sound feedback as well. Left side then here for controlling the cruise control, also with the newest assistance systems upgrade and so on. Here in the middle part, it's cool that you still have a manual volume knob, but you can also use gesture control, for example, like this. Yeah, magic. And you can also use the voice input. Hey BMW, where is the next charging station?
Which one of the destinations shall I select?
Yeah, oh, there's a charging station here, and also you can charge at BMW dealers. There's electric vehicle charging station. Yeah, so that already works quite well, especially with GPS input and so on. Then in the lower area here, still a manual volume knob, as I said here. Then also manual climate unit. This is easy to control while driving, so I really like this more old school setup here. Really also feels premium. iX3 logo in the lower part. Closed cover here, open it, and then have inductive charging pad for your phone and adaptive cup holders. Oh, and then there's here like this optional smoker's pack. I mean, when there's no smoke from the exhaust, then you need smoke inside, right? Yeah. So, and then here is interesting that you can go to a D mode or to a B mode then, so when the car is turned on, and in B mode there's then more recuperation happening. Other than that, you also have Sport, Comfort and Eco Pro mode for the throttle input and so on. You can control the touchscreen also with this central control knob, that's possible. And then there's this armrest, and it's quite well attached, and there's USB-C charging then underneath next to this cubby hole. And one more close-up here. What is my range would also be a voice command, for example, also suggesting what you can actually, say to the system. Then the GPS map also shows you some charging stations and reacts quite well. So nicely done as for that. Really responsive, like this. And here in these car settings, for example, you can also have the independent climate unit, for example. It always comes with electric vehicles, or plan your charging and so on. Not sure how often this is then being used. The preheating, not sure what that was. Yeah, you can select the individual driver's profiles as well. Journey data, for example, will go more into depth when we drive the vehicle. And here the Apple CarPlay integration, like this, very well done. Android Auto now also available. And the sound system here, the optional Harman Kardon sound system. Wow, it's really cool, very rich sound. So yeah, can just recommend that here. And then you can always go back to the BMW menu. By the way, always interesting to see, you can also switch the recuperation here inside, and adaptive recuperation would mean that the car actually realizes what's happening on the outside. So just rolling when there's nothing in the front, but when there's a car in the front, or you approach a roundabout, you approach next traffic light, then there's more recuperation. So supposed to be the most efficient driving. And then you can also set the recuperation level for the D, for the drive mode, to high, medium or low. But I think it makes most sense to stick it here with the adaptive in the D mode and then switch to the B mode to the left if you want this, highest recuperation. But actually, like from all the experience BMW has, the adaptive mode supposed to be the best one. And when we start the vehicle here, the start-stop button is also in this nice blue color. And here the digital instruments, standard for the iX3 as I said. And now when I hit the start-stop button, listen to the sound, designed by Hans Zimmer. So this is the new electric startup sound. It will be the same for all BMW electric vehicles. And when you shut it off again, so it's like and So then tell us in the comments what you think about this Hans Zimmer sound design. And here also nice visualization also of the actual vehicle color in the inside of the instruments. And then we can see on the left side the speed, and on the right side here we have the power output, and then we can also see the recuperation meter and so on, and tell you more about that when we drive the vehicle. And the head-up display is a nice option, speed, the current one, and also loud speed and GPS error informations if you have a destination set. Ambient lighting set to blue here, that's the most fitting one, but you can also change the colors, and it's actually quite nicely integrated here at the side of the dashboard and also at the inside of the doors and so on. Any compromises on the rear bench? Let's first take a look. Well, it looks quite normal for the X3. Definitely here, middle tunnel here with two USB-C chargers. You can see it in the lower part right there, and also a rear climate unit. And let's take a seat. Soft touch sensor tech also at the inside of the doors, upper part. And yeah, it's totally fine, really comfortable, enough legroom, and again with 1.86 or 6.1 also enough headroom. Would be a little more headroom if you leave out the panoramic roof, but that's totally fine. So comfortable seating here. Then you can control here the back part of the seats a little bit with this lever here in the angle. You can also fold them directly from here. I mean, this is more for the angle, and this in the upper part to fold them directly. Isofix at the outside part. Then in the middle, yeah, I mean, you can also reasonably sit in the middle. Not the most comfortable one because the bolt string is a little bit stiffer right there. There is still somewhat a middle tunnel. This shows us that it's not like a primary electric vehicle platform, and they also sometimes do it then, for example, for stability reasons. But in this case, then also the X3 usually would be all-wheel drive. Then they also leave the middle tunnel here in this EV version, so they can, for example, use it for more battery storage and so on, or just for stability reasons. Then here, adaptive cup holders, so more cubby hole space. And you can also just fold this middle ski hatch if you like. As for the trunk, 510 up to 1,560 liters means hardly any compromise as for that. If you compare it with the combustion engine version, really square dimensions, very nicely done. This cover here is also not too bad, easy. So the only thing you lose, you don't have too much space here underneath, but I think we can really live with that. Even loading sill, good quality and so on. And to fold the seats, you can also use the mechanism right here, left and right. Good solution, so a very well usable electric vehicle. Finally, something from the German premium manufacturers that is also not too big. You know, mid-size SUV or electric, this is something that the market will demand. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the BMW iX3 all electric. Startup sound, yeah, I just want to show that to you one more time. Putting the lever in drive mode, and then we start all silent. Really cool. However, there's also an acoustic feedback when pushing the throttle. I'll show that to you very soon. Then we go to the sport mode, so best boost here with the rear-wheel drive, and we accelerate out of the corner. See how agile this car is actually. Wow, that's awesome. Really cool. And you maybe also heard that sound. So when I'm in the sport mode, there's more acoustic feedback also. And this is supposed to give you a feeling of acceleration. So not only silent acceleration, but that you really have, some kind of a feeling of what's happening there actually. And we can also do a 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 0 to 60 miles an hour right here. And this is, again, so easy with the electric vehicles. I don't need a launch control or something. Just push the throttle all the way. Let's go. Plop, that's it. And really powerful. And I think the electric sound is actually quite nice. It gives you indeed a little bit more of a feeling of what's happening. And this can actually be quite good for driver and co-driver, because sometimes you have like a spontaneous acceleration from electric vehicles and your brain doesn't really cope with it because it's so fast and there's no sound feedback. So just as a difference, when I'm in the comfort mode and do an acceleration, and then again when I'm in the sport mode and do acceleration, it's a little bit louder. You can also individualize it, either depending on the drive mode, or you can, for example, also turn it off, so electric motor sound deactivated, and then there's nothing. The question is, would be looking forward to hear your feedback on that one. Would you rather go for no feedback at all, like many other electric vehicles, or would you rather have this sound feedback when accelerating? It's of course all artificial. The question is it a benefit for the customer or is it just annoying? We also had the discussion with the Porsche Taycan where you can also turn it off, or it's also bound to a driving mode that you more have it in the sport mode and you don't have it like in the normal comfort driving mode. I'm not sure about it yet. So usually I was more a fan of all silent, but when it's electric then you go all silent. But it's interesting, but I think to me it reminds me more of a combustion engine. So maybe it's interesting as a transition or so, but I don't know. What do you think, Michel? It's good or?
It's okay.
It's okay, he says?
Yeah.
I mean, would you actually activate it in the electric vehicle?
I guess I would.
Okay, Michel would. I probably would deactivate it, speaking now. So we're 50-50. So you decide and who wins, right? Acceleration to the motorway. Let's see, you get on here in a safe spot. And so far, like the driving agility of this vehicle is superb. It feels like a sports car. That's 120. Wow. really awesome. And it's so much fun. It's definitely the most fun ride in a BMW X3 I ever had. I mean, not only the acceleration, just the 0 to 100 kilometer acceleration would be a little bit better in a 30i or something, but here it feels actually faster. And like the, like 0 to 60 kilometers, this is then, for example, faster with the all-electric version, like from the standstill, to compare like, comparable power combustion engines. But also from the whole driving dynamics, indeed the center of gravity is lower with this vehicle. So the steering input is really good, and you feel the low center of, wow, it's really amazing. I can just stress that due to the low center of gravity, the car feels so sporty. It, like from the sporty characteristics, it does not feel like a grown-up SUV anymore. It really rather feels like a sporty 3 Series sedan or so. That's really amazing. So the enormous additional weight due to this battery pack is not playing bad with the car or something. It really affects the car in a very, very positive way. And I mean, I even would have fun like to drive it on a racetrack now. This is, I'm totally flabbergasted what they've done here with the X3. So definitely, I can already tell you right now, if you have the charging infrastructure and if the price is somewhat okay, BMW wants to lower the prices also for the iX3 in comparison to the combustion engine models. Like not cheaper than the combustion engine, but wants to, even out this, this price difference a little bit. So if you can do that, just driving wise, for the customer experience from the driving, this electric version here beats all other combustion engines. It's so much fun to drive. It's really amazing. It's amazing. So, and then let's drive a little bit faster on the motorway. We can also do that. We are right now at the moment unlimited speed. Oh, come on, let's go to sports mode once more. And even here in the high speed areas, you can still accelerate very well, 160 kilometers an hour. Wow. And how silent and stable the car is remaining. Adaptive suspension is standard for this vehicle. Here in the sports mode, it's set a little bit stiffer, but great balance between comfort and sportiness, even here with the 20-inch wheels. So 19-inch would be a little bit more comfortable, but 20-inch still work. Here at 170 kilometers an hour, we start to pick up a little bit of wind noise, but still, I mean, we're driving an SUV. It's an upright car, and it's super silent. Also here, high speed on the motorway. Wow, so awesome, so flawless here in the driving. I'm really, really impressed. Good overview also to the rear, to the sides, upright building style. This is like a very, very good mid-size SUV. And I mean, just from the customer experience, from driving and what it delivers, probably now one of the best mid-size SUV overall. I can just stress it again. If you then go for the Sensortech seats with the base comfort seats, even better. They deliver you a little bit more comfort and also, follow more this sustainability approach of the whole electric vehicle. Then it's really all fine and doing so well here on the motorway, definitely. I mean, this was here now quite heavy in the, acceleration and so on. So when I go to the journey data here now, then it tells us like a very high electric consumption figure. So more than 25 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. That's of course when we really floor it all out. What we really want to find out is the range realistic according to the energy consumption. And so I'll reset it here now and then start the driving part, with more with about efficiency and so on and so on. So we reset individual, also set the cruise control here. There's the assistant driving function or just the distance control. So both is actually available. And with the assisted driving, the car is also keeping me in the lane, like this. Active lane keeping assist, and quite good centered, not too intrusive. There's also blind spot monitor, we can see it right here, and when I put the turning indicators, then also starts to flash as an additional warning. So assistance wise, here also keeping the distance to the car in front of us. And this we're also really playing together with the electric drive of the vehicle. So what's happening? I'm at the moment in normal driving mode, and it's about the adaptive recuperation. This is standard for the vehicle. So When I'm just rolling, the car is not recuperating at all, using rolling energy, which is more efficient if you want to cover more distance. Then, if you want to decelerate anyway, recuperation makes sense, of course, instead of using the normal brakes. And that's happening when you use the normal brakes. That's happening when you are in this B mode for stronger recuperation, but also then here in the adaptive recuperation mode. So when the car is in front of us here now and they are decelerating, also the adaptive recuperation does that. So I'm gaining back the energy. Or when like there's a next intersection or when there's a next traffic light, for example, then this adaptive recuperation is active, and thus BMW claims is the most efficient driving mode. The B mode would be the mode you go in for when you want the one pedal feeling. However, the thing is, when this adaptive recuperation is really so intelligent, probably you won't need it. And then it's actually good when you have situations. I'll cancel the cruise control now. Let's just test it. So I'm running towards this truck, and indeed, strong recuperation without setting cruise control or something. So it works without GPS data, without cruise control and so on, no problem. And here now, again, in front of the truck, strong recuperation. So that works very well. Now the truck is gone beside. I was using the force, just to like, yeah, that's, okay, yeah. So now here there's a free road in front of us. Then I leave the throttle, no recuperation, we're rolling. Not sure if you can see that here also in the instruments. It's just like, this arrow is on the base 0 line. So once again, leaving the throttle, no recuperation. Here, truck, automatic recuperation. That's very well done. What a cool system. So this really gives you more efficiency because, again, when you want to cover more distance, rolling is more efficient, of course, than getting on the throttle and recuperate again. So rolling overall makes more sense, unless then again, if you want to reduce the speed anyway. And in this case, I think most of the time I really like to have strong recuperation modes with the electric vehicles or plug-in hybrids. But when you have a mechanism like this, I think you can easily leave it in this automatic mode, leave it in this adaptive recuperation mode, and you're probably even happier because the car really adapts it to the according situation. And I think that's really, really well done. What would be the difference? Here the B mode. So when I get off the throttle, strong recuperation, and it's really notable deceleration. But that's always happening then. It also has like a signaling arrow then in this digital instrument for that. So always then when I get off the throttle, it's like this. Maybe you say I want to drive an electric vehicle like this. Then you can then you can still do it. It's not the standard mode when you put in the D mode, but at least you still have the choice to do so. But I found this approach here with the adaptive recuperation really, really interesting. So, more and more things we learn about this, these electric vehicles. So now when we take a look, we had more like constant speed now, and this about the 16 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, fuel economy, well, energy economy, we have to say now. So used to these vocabularies. And 16 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers would actually exactly hit the projected official range figure of 460 kilometers or 285 miles. So this is also quite impressive. For a mid-size SUV, this is indeed quite efficient. We can even bring it a little bit down. I mean, like 1 or 20 kilometers an hour is not like the ideal best fuel economy test for an electric vehicle. Like something between 80, 90, 100 would be the best for a combustion engine. And also here, when you put it like 80 kilometers an hour cruise control, because it would be even better here for that. Because the thing is, we get off the motorway very soon now. The thing is with the combustion engines, they have a sweet spot as for the efficient consumption. So when you say like cruise control 100 kilometers an hour or something, that will be kind of most efficient. But with electric vehicles is the faster you go, the higher consumption is, period. So it will be lower with lower speeds. There's no like a sweet spot of best consumption. It's just lower or higher. And that's why we can also score better fuel economy than if we just drive slower with this vehicle, but this is also a realistic everyday driving figure, you know, when we're on the motorway and, you know, maybe commuting to work with 120 kilometers an hour, like, you know, 60 to 70 miles an hour or something. So this is really realistic. And we now see that when we recuperate a little bit more, then the consumption even goes down a little bit more. And we also have now some like countryside driving and see how that, you know, evolves. But so far, the impression is really, that's also what BMW claimed, and I was, you know, skeptical about that at first. So they said that they didn't put the battery bigger. They wanted to cover more range with being more efficient. Also, for example, like in the front, these air channels or air curtains that go from the front to the wheel arches, we know it from combustion engine models, that increase efficiency. Then the aero wheels, you know, that also optimize the wind flow in the wheel arches. Then the heat pump, especially when it's cold. Yeah, today, I mean, 7.5 degrees Celsius is not too warm, actually. So the heat pump also plays a role for that, definitely. And also this new motor design they have, which is more efficient if they also compare it to like the BMW i3, which was the like initial all-electric project now. So this has been made definitely more efficient here, also with a synchronous motor. So far, you know, really good in performance. The driving, the handling is superb. And now also the efficiency figure is actually quite good. It's even getting better. So now we had some more regenerative braking moments. We're about 13 kWh more kilometers. This would even exceed the official range figures. So yeah, I think, I mean, I'm really impressed. So once again, to me, the problem with electric mobility is rather the infrastructure. Sometimes prices are, of course, still higher. Then you have sometimes like governmental, you know, benefits or something that even that out. The driving experience is, meanwhile, if you don't miss like a V8 sound or something, driving experience is probably the best with electric vehicles, just from a customer perspective. Range is getting better and better with, you know, with the batteries or also with more efficiency. And you know, when you're driving like 20,000 miles, 40,000 kilometers a year, then maybe combustion engine is still better for you. But for most shorter ways and everyday commuting, electric vehicles are more suitable actually. To me, it's really about, do you have a proper charging infrastructure which relieves stress for fueling up the vehicle instead of, you know, annoying you. That's, to me, I think, like the crucial thing. When you have a bad infrastructure, then the electric vehicles won't be fun. When you have good charging infrastructure, when you can just plug it in at home, then you have a lot of fun. Now some countryside driving. So this will be like some, like, not too slow speed, but also not really super high speeds. And we can really have also a joyride with this vehicle. When it would be nicer weather, we could also open the roof. And here at the moment we just leave a lot of light in, and the car really feels so well balanced. And indeed, the experience we have had now for quite some time, that the electric vehicles are really more fun to drive, and the added weight is something which is rather an asset to the vehicle, gives more stability on the road, actually puts the, you know, center of gravity lower, told you about that initially, and makes the car even more agile in the corners. Here again, direct, you know, response from the steering and so on. Yeah, and once again, the adaptive recuperation is working very well. And by the way, when you go on the brakes, you can accelerate here. Wow, spontaneous acceleration, awesome, just awesome. Really like it. Is like, this is a sports car, this is an SUV, this is an efficient vehicle. It's a comfortable one. I'm really absolutely blown away. And I mean, I've driven like 2,000 cars now in my life, and that doesn't happen that often, you know, that I'm really like so satisfied with almost everything in detail, besides the seating surfaces set up here. Yeah, so that really speaks for itself. And I know the BMW X3 for, you know, previous generation, this generation. We've been driving it in so many different engine versions, also in the M version and so on. And this is by so far the best and most striking version they've done. Yeah, this is in driving, in all aspects, top notch. And now to our conclusion for today with the all-new BMW iX3, the EV of the X3. First of all, exterior. The basic dimensions are of course the same, it's not too different. The blue accentuations, I found them pretty cool. I think it's a unique design feature. But again, as I said, you can also de-pick them if you rather want a normal look, as it is also with the combustion engine models. Interior, you have reasonable space, as you know from the X3, and you already have an upright, grown-up SUV feeling and seating positions. And there are also no compromises here for the electric version, so you can also very well use the trunk and so on. A high build quality as well. A little bit sad that they do not offer more animal skin alternatives, but you can get the base comfort seats then with the sensor tech. That will do just fine, just not in this test vehicle here today. And also then the sensor tech both in black and also in this brown color. So the color is the same for today, also available if you want a little bit more spiced up color right there. Then driving wise, it's just phenomenal. It drives so well. It is sporty due to the low center of gravity. Due to the additional weight, it feels so sporty in driving. It has a spontaneous acceleration. This is also really cool, especially from the get-go. So just a flawless driving experience, both super sporty, agile and fun. At the same time, can be driven very efficiently. So even at higher autobahn speeds, if you put cruise control, 16 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometer is a realistic figure. So that would indeed be the official range of 460 kilometers or 285 miles. So quite impressed as for that. They obviously really found an efficient concept here for their new all-electric vehicle. And this strategy here that they put the very same core car and not put a separate EV platform, this will be the same now for all BMW Group vehicles. When we see, for example, the BMW i4, which will, so to speak, the electrified 3 or 4 series, this will basically follow the same concept. So very interesting to see also this different strategy now from the Volkswagen AG, for example. And yeah, I can just stress again, this is to me one of the best vehicles of the year in driving, especially efficient and fun at the same time. And I mean, it's not a new vehicle at all. The BMW X3 in this generation has been out there. Of course, now the electrified version is now all new. But it's really interesting how an existing vehicle can be made so much better as for the whole experience you have with that you are basically blown away. And that doesn't happen so often when I drive the new cars. So really, really cool. The question is then, again, as I said in the driving part, do you have the proper charging infrastructure? And is your driving profile like not, salesman, 50,000 kilometers, 30,000 miles a year? So if you don't commute like every day, so many miles or kilometers, and if you have the charging infrastructure, then the electrified version is also very interesting. Sadly, the BMW iX3, the electric version, will not be sold in the US so far. BMW does not expect this to be a significant market. Would like to hear the comments from our friends in the US to that. They expect China to be the main market, and then of course also Europe. And as for pricing, the very first communicated price was 68,000 euros for the German market. However, this is also a highly spec'd vehicle, so you have a lot of included equipment already if you compare to the base X3. And then if you put a high-spec X3 combustion engine, the difference is not that large anymore. Then if you count in some governmental benefits and tax benefits, it can be even out a little bit more. And BMW also announced that they want to, step by step reduce the price of the iX3 to get it closer to the combustion engine models. What else was criticized here? That this car is only built in China for the world market. Quality-wise, you do not see any difference to X3 that is built in Spartanburg in the US, or for example, also if you think about BMW that are built in Germany or something, so they have the same quality measures and so on, and the same standards as for that. Still, some people rather want to have a BMW built in Germany or in the US. You can also, of course, understand that. And last but not least, What's your opinion here on the BMW iX3? Really looking forward to your questions and also to your opinion in the comments. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, why not show off a little bit here with these wing doors to a full review of the Tesla Model X Performance Raven. What does it mean? First of all, the Model X Performance, as the name says, the performance model here with the highest performance, with the highest power output. Nowadays, only anymore the long-range version and the performance model is available, both with the biggest battery, so they have simplified a little bit, and the Raven, that means the updated electric motor in the front. So an extensive facelift, so to speak, not exactly with visual changes, but I can tell you, a lot has changed here with the Model X. So many interesting things to come, I can promise. Exterior, interior, and the updated driving experience with the acceleration-wise fastest SUV in the world from series production. More to come now with Thomas in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! So there are many great things about this vehicle, and one of them is, for example, you approach it, have the key in your pocket, for example, then here mirrors fold out and the door automatically opens and comes towards you. This is just so intuitive, awesome. Also, when I open the trunk, the rear hatch here, when I'm outside, it goes all the way open like this. But when I'm in my basement garage, where it's like really limited in the height, it just stops where it has to stop. I don't need to set it, need to preset it or something, just automatically stops where it's supposed to stop. Awesome. Well, meanwhile you can control the car with your smartphone, with the Tesla app, but I think it's always nice to have, you know, this Tesla key stand, and you can do so much with it. For example, in the rear, you can, you know, press it twice and then the trunk opens right there. You can press the left sides twice and then the Falcon doors open. So this is all possible. Really great stuff. Or you just press it, you know, on the top part and then everything closes again. So this is so cool. And by the way, holding the rear part of the trunk then releases the charging port. And with that smartphone app, you can summon your vehicle. For example, you can, you know, let it come towards you out of a narrow parking lot, for example. However, at the moment, I do have a bad connection here. So this is then also one of the limits. In the front, you can see here, these are the daytime running lights, beautiful design, sleek design as well, typical small Tesla opening there with the logo. Of course, we don't need so much cooling here for an electric vehicle in the very front. The Model X, of course, resembles a little bit also the Model S, just this one being the SUV, it's then once again a little bit higher. Not so many visual changes here with the recent Raven update. But I can tell you there are a lot of things to come, technology-wise, driving-wise, insulation-wise, suspension-wise, and so on and so on. White vehicle color here for today. There are 5 different colors available. I would probably pick a deep blue, which is Thomas blue we call here. And then maybe you have like a nice mix here to the interior. 3 interior colors available, so soon more about that. But that's also one scheme about the Tesla models. There aren't so many options, and you don't have, oh, like $30,000 or $40,000 or euros extra price than for this vehicle segment like the German premium manufacturers. Here you just pick the color on the exterior, color on the interior, and that's basically it. Wheels, maybe, and then that's it really. And that makes it so easy to order a car, for example, here with Tesla. The length is at 5 meters 04, 16'5" or 198 inches. Of course, this hasn't changed. And 20-inch wheels or 22-inch wheels, directly the step. These are here the 20-inch wheels in the bright style. In Germany, for example, we have a different bright styling. In the US configurator at the moment, just one bright styling, but sometimes it changes as well. And then the 22-inch wheels would be in the black styling for more sporty, menacing style. However, here with these 20-inch wheels, you have the best riding comfort. talking about that, here with the Raven update, both for the Model S and for the Model X, you get a new adaptive air suspension. So it had air suspension before, but now adaptive. You can also see different modes on the interior infotainment. And this is supposed to bring more comfort. Of course, we will find out more about it very soon while driving. Generally, the design here, crossover wheel claddings, typical SUV design, but then this more SUV coupe shape at the rear with these coupe style windows, tinted windows here also in the rear. Yeah, and then of course the very special Falcon doors. You can once again see how they look like when they open like this. They can even open when it's a little bit narrower right here. You've seen it maybe. And they also have good sensors. They work even better nowadays. So before there were some, things sometimes they didn't work too well and so on, but now they have updated this, these doors, the whole sensor thing throughout. And meanwhile, I have to say it really works very well. I still think that the normal door would be more practical, yes. However, these are also very fancy, always a great show-off feature. And as I said, they have improved so many things that were bad before are now really top-notch. Also had problems with the rear hatch a couple of years ago with the electronics there. This is all now fixed, so this vehicle has really been, perfectionized throughout the building process. And now on the rear, this 3/4 rear perspective is really interesting, how the side window line closer towards the end definitely. The very rear then has some bulky shape, I have to say. But yeah, that's always a matter of preference. Here the tail lamp design, also very modern still. Dual motor it says here, because one motor in the front, one in the rear. There's a new one in the front that is called Raven in this motor project. That's why also the whole update we can call Raven. It was used in Tesla Model 3 before at the rear axle, and here now at the front axle, because here at the rear for the S and the X they need stronger electric motors for the rear axle. But overall efficiency gain at least 10%, if not more, so there's more power available, yet at the same time a higher or longer range. And depending, of course, always on how you drive, you can really score more than 300 miles if you drive very, very well, even some 350 miles, or even realistically 500 kilometers as the range. That's very, very good. Now, two models available. Either here, the one we have today, the performance model with even more power for the rear motor, or then the long-range model. The acceleration figures here for the performance model in miles per hour, so to 60 miles an hour is 2.6 seconds for the performance model and 4.4 seconds for the long-range model, and up to 0 to 1 kilometers an hour is 2.8 seconds for the performance model and 4.6 seconds for the long-range model. And charging is 11 kilowatt AC and up to 250 kilowatt DC at the supercharger. First of all, door closing sound. It's actually quite nice. And what else do we have? We have the soft close. Ta-da! Now the interior, black decal elements, then white leather red right here, also soft touch at the top part of the doors. We know these Mercedes window levers from past models. And you can see here, straightforward, simple layout, digital instruments, soon details to that. Also soft touch dashboard, all animal free, but looks like it. Just the steering wheel in the S and the X, you have to order that individually, that you get also a non-animal wrapping there. In the Model 3 and the Model Y it's standard, so this they have to work on the X and the S. However, here the seats, they are indeed all animal-free, sustainable materials also. And if you think about petroleum use, by the way, this can also be done from recyclables, first of all, soon maybe also from plant-based materials. And the amount of petroleum that would be used for PU seat is, really, really little if you compare it to fuel use or energy use. So while you do the production for animal skin, you use more oil than what you would use here for petroleum-based seats. just a small, information excursus. Definitely a great material here, very soft touch. It feels really high class, high grade. The recent BMW new Centertech seats for BMW 5 Series were even better, I think, meanwhile. But these were already pretty cool. 3 colors, either here the white one, the standard one would be the black one, here for the white, and the beige one, 1,500 euros or dollars extra. Here with the white you have a black ceiling in combination. The beige one would come also with a bright ceiling, so probably for that reason I would put the beige ones. I think also the beige ones are not that sensitive to maybe like stains than the white ones. However, you can wipe them clean pretty easily. That's also a good solution, definitely. So my favorite pick would be probably the deep blue on the outside and the beige interior on the inside. But here white is also cool, or black and white. So exterior black and interior white would also be fancy. Definitely a very nice look we have here. Now let's get inside. Really easy entry also to the front, and the reason I would always prefer the Model X to the Model S is that I sit more upright here in the SUV style. Yes, I like the Model S more as for the design, but here you have the upright SUV seating position and of course this huge panoramic front windscreen. Really cool. Just a so unique atmosphere here still. This is not a new vehicle, but it's still so unique as for the whole interior design. Seats also now updated here with the electric motors. They are better than before. So even things that haven't been announced to be, majorly updated, just small things before the electric motors were sometimes a little bit louder or so, or felt a little bit awkward. This has also been updated now. Steering wheel here up and down and also towards you, and everything is really easy and straightforward. Although this is so packed full of features and technology, most of the things are intuitive and easy to use, and that's I think the key to this vehicle. So once again, comfortable seating setup here, and headroom with 1/86 or 6'1". Don't even have to talk about it because there's this panoramic screen. Talking about intuitive, when you are just entering the vehicle, and here you have maybe any doors open, then you can just press close all on the screen and then everything closes itself. And just for the driver's door, just hit the brake here with the foot. Here we go. What a great solution. Talking about straightforward here, I move the steering wheel, for example, or move the seat. Then immediately here my Thomas user account says I can save it directly, so I can save my driving profile setting here for the seat and the steering. So once again, my point, it is a very complex thing. So many things are offered to you, but they made it easy. So that's the difference then to the new systems by the established car manufacturers. Very interesting. So here again, this cockpit setup that still looks concept car like, 17-inch screen, huge and massive. Here with the satellite view, Google satellite view, really impressive. And of course, the best GPS you can get because it's Google based. Then you can see the great wraparound here with the dark interior element, this covered wood, and there's also a reason for me maybe to go for a beige interior, because then you can also have this beige interior element. Here the glove box, one button for that, but pretty shallow as for the space, and the left side button would be for the hazard indicators. That's it button wise right here, everything else with the screen, and soon more details how we control everything of that. Steering wheel. This is very interesting because on the left side we have the volume control and you skip the tracks and so on. When you at some point need to reboot the system, by the way, when you have a black screen, left or right or something, even while driving, the car will still drive, you can here hit and hold both of the buttons, so left and right thumb. This will reboot the software system, just in case you know. Voice input also works very well. For example, set temperature to 22 degrees. Here, and that's already happening. Now the rear blower is working, for example. Different things also for example, for the GPS input, it also works very well. And interesting here on the right side, right thumb, you have control of the most basic functions via the screen here. And this is also a reason why I can live in this case, that I don't have any separate temperature knobs. I'll soon show you what I mean then here in the digital gauges, where I can then also pick things here with my right thumb. Pretty interesting. Then lower part, we have a cubby hole here, then you can slide this cover open. Also nice quality, by the way. Then you can have also splitters in between if you like that, if you want to have this front cubby hole split. Then You have an inductive charging platform for your smartphone where you can put it in, or you would have two USB supplies. One is at the moment used for the inductive charging platform, and some cup holders you can slide open right here. You know, in the digital instruments, as soon as you set the car to drive, then you have the speed in the top part, for example. Left side, when you have a GPS route set, that's also definitely a good solution. On the right side, either, for example, energy consumption meter, or then when I scroll with my right thumb here, this is then the thing I say, it's okay with the non-knob temperature, because I can control the temperature right here. Just by scrolling with my right thumb, I can control the temperature, or again, I could use the voice input, and also here with the fan speed. So, and this can be easily done while driving, and that's why I can live without the temperature knobs. Or also here access the recent calls of your smartphone via Bluetooth. That's again another reason why I could also live without the CarPlay and so on. Yeah. Very interesting, definitely the solution here, and to me also way better than in the Model 3. It's so much better to have the instruments here and the according controls on the steering wheel than just that one central screen in the Model 3 or in the Model Y. So that's also why for the user interface and the user input, I would prefer the X and the S. And then to the screen, there's so much to show here, also very fast and responsive, even though when the satellite view is activated. But of course, you can also go for the more basic view like this. It might be even better for navigation when that's, you know, when it's in this very mode here, but this of course looks fancier. Then there's this car menu where you can close, for example, all of the doors and so on, or change the display brightness. Suspension settings now for the adaptive air suspension, comfort, auto or sport. I usually leave it in comfort, just more comfortable. Suspension can be also lowered here. It needs to be lowered for the launch control, which you can activate here with the Ludicrous Plus mode. But then, no, I want my mommy, yes, bring it on. Then it, for example, now needs 40 minutes to preheat the battery for the Ludicrous Plus mode, but Ludicrous mode itself is also fine. Just believe me, it's more than fast enough. Usually I leave it on chill acceleration. That's better for your body and especially for the ones of your passengers. Steering, you can set here different resistance in there. Usually also leave it on standard. Regenerative braking is that way you can have the one pedal feeling. With low, you can rather drive like a combustion engine. And here in the new stopping mode, then when you have it to hold, it really reduces the speed until 0. Creeping would be when you have the brake released, then it rolls a little bit forward, for example. But yeah, it depends on how you want to have it. You can control everything here, not as necessarily while driving, for example, but when you set one of the things here first and once, that's actually quite fine, that's okay, and then you're fine with most of the things, and that's really totally okay. And then you don't need to control stuff like this all the time here in the screen. In the lower part, you can, for example, also access the rear view camera, but it also automatically comes when you put in reverse gear. Great resolution, great view, and also the energy consumption, which is exceptionally low here because we have a regenerative braking here at the moment from the motorway. But when you look at it right here, we had some performance on the motorway, then it's a little bit higher. So it really depends on, but very nicely to follow it. Seat heating is available here. The climate unit can be accessed right there as well, but doing that while driving, here seat heating even for the third seating row in 3 levels. Wow. So accessing that while driving is a little bit complicated. See, the steering wheel can also be heated, and that's all standard now. With the vehicle, you don't have to tick any options and so on. That is so cool with this car. So almost everything is standard now. The music you would access here from your phone via Bluetooth. That's the only thing. You can easily access, for example, the recent calls and so on via Bluetooth. But picking playlists, at least from the iPhone X at the moment, is not possible. You have to pick it on your phone. That's the only thing that's, for example, missing if you compare to using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or so. But most of the time, then Bluetooth is so much enough. Or you use, for example, Spotify. And yeah, I would like to have still an Apple CarPlay. It would be nice to have the option at least. But since you have the great GPS here and also the nice voice input, most of the things the car system does by itself then. And then it's somewhat also fine. So very impressive system, and of course to fool around a little bit here, can play around with farts, for example. or have some nice visualizations, or like the Christmas mode, Santa mode or something. Yeah, we've shown that in a couple of reviews already. Yeah, Xmas mode, for example, you have to start the Xmas show. You can check it out in the other review. I mean, yeah, you can show off that with your friends, play around a little bit, but of course not really necessary. But something else you have to say, why not? Rear seating. It's really an awesome experience to get inside with these Falcon doors, with the wing doors. So easy the entry, at least when you have the space to open them all the way. Still some legroom left here when the bench is in the most rear position. We also have a different view of the Model X where we have the 6-seater model, which has the 2 single seats here, and then you can go through the rear in the middle for this 2-2-2 setup. That's of course a practical solution, also a lot of fun for the kids, for example. But here with the bench, the good thing is you can adjust here the back part of the seat in the angle, and they can also fold it down completely when you want to use the trunk a little bit more. So I think I would always go for the 5-seater or the 7-seater setup as we have it here right now, because you're just more flexible with folding it and then have just more trunk space left. When you have a different vehicle, like when you have a pickup at home or something and you use all the loading for that and you never do it in here in the Model X, then of course the 6-seater setup is also quite cool. However, the extra price, at least 6.5K, even more sometimes in some markets, for the 6-seater option, so really, really expensive option, and just a little bit more here for the 7-seater option. Of course, the 5-seater, the standard, is then the least expensive one, the standard one. You can also slide this bench forward here. Then, it gets close with my legs, so I need to spread it just a little bit. But that's the only way. Adults could also sit in the rear. My most comfortable position would then still be like this, but then there would not be too much space here in the rear. I'll soon hop to the 3rd seating row and then you see what I mean. But for that I really need to push it all the way in the front. And to get inside, the only thing I can do is really use this lever here or use the button here behind to fold it down. There's ISOFIX at the outside seats each here for the 2nd row. And of course cool that the middle seat is a full normal seat, and here electric vehicle, no middle tunnel, so you can very well sit here in the middle part. Unless you use the USB chargers or the cup holders. Just one limitation here in the middle seat, so headroom wise for me, 1.86 or 6.1, it's still cool, exactly okay, but I do hit the ceiling with my hairs. So if you're any taller than me, not too good then. Then you should move once again to the outside here, where you have the space then, with the glass, with a separate glass inside the Falcon doors. And I said the build quality improved, but there's one piece here at the inside of the Falcon doors. This could be, better than this. Could be also covered in the same Alcantara as this one. Yeah, but we really have to search for things like this now. So the only thing that is maybe missing here for the 7-seater is a better entry function to the rear seats, and so you can just slide them forward and fold them down, but there's not, like an, comfort entry function or something. And when I go behind this here, then it does actually work then here with tall adults in a way that, I have to put my head here behind this, close to the glass. It directly works, not like, super comfortable, so also works with the legs, but only when I have pushed this bench here all the way forward. But again, the nice leatherette surface here, cup holders, and, well, the seats themselves, they are actually quite decently comfortable also in the rear. And I wonder, weren't there some ISOFIX in earlier versions here at the last seating row? Not anymore, it seems. You can open the front in your smartphone app, or once again with a double click here on the key in the front. And so it's also a very easy solution. Here you can store additional charging cables, for example, or this like charging cable box. So we have additional floor mats here. This vehicle is all new still, and there's reasonable space already in the front, so all your cables could be stored right there, or maybe even some additional stuff. The maximum trunk figures for the 5-seater would be 2,500 liters or 88 cubic feet. And you see here, it's a 7-seater, but I think it's actually quite cool because you can also use it as a trunk split, these additional seatings here in the rear. So a cabin trolley perfectly fits in here behind that. That's actually quite cool. And the measures just here in the very, very rear part. The length is here 45 centimeters and the width here, this is a meter. So this is more than a meter right here. And you can easily release them right here like this, and then you can also push them forward like this. So here we go. And what's also better than before is that this trunk cover, it can be put in like this. So that's a very good solution. Then you can again reach the cable, for example. You can put it in the front or here in the rear. So a lot of space underneath once again. So very good space offering. And the length in here, when you would have set this setup, or also the 5-seater, here there's about 1 meter and 15, and I already folded one of the seating rows right there, and the length here up to the seat in the front is more than 2 meters actually. And here's also a reason why you can also fold the seats in here. There's a button right here, and then they also go forward. And when you, for example, you would use luggage from the rear, then you can also push it and it would also fold once again. So other than that, you would have to go around. And then let me show the very final maximum loading space for today. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Tesla Model X Performance Raven, this updated motor. And let's put it to the ludicrous mode. There's now also ludicrous plus mode available. However, that would take heating about 55 minutes or something. You get a little bit more power than even, so even more extreme, but the battery has to be preheated for that. There's also then a launch control available, but of course you need maybe like rather a racetrack for that. Here we do a flying start for safety reasons in the normal ludicrous mode, but this one will already be very spectacular. Ladies and gentlemen, the fastest series production SUV in the world from acceleration. Plop, that's 200 kilometers an hour or 125 miles per hour, and this was really an incredible acceleration. I mean, no other SUV can do that in this kind of way. And I mean, yes, it's very loud here and then in here, but considering the older model, this has massively been improved. And now let's go to a speed of 150 kilometers an hour. Whoa, yeah, that's a Porsche doing the same thing that we do. Because here now, like, this is now a very good speed, 140 kilometers an hour, and it's very, very silent in here. So this is a big step forward if you compare it to the non-Raven or pre-Raven model. So the noise insulation here, especially at higher speeds, has been massively improved, massively. So indeed, that was one of the things where so far we said Tesla has a great concept, but they are lacking a little bit behind in the perfection, in the look and feel, build quality, noise insulation, and so on. And once again, I'm really astonished how big the difference is. So most of the time, when there are changes in the Model X or Model S or even the Model 3, they are software relevant, and then it doesn't make a difference if you would buy a new model or not. That's also the good thing about Tesla. You always get the updates, and most of the time it's not hardware. Yes, and there are also some third-party insulation packages, for example for Model 3, which really improves that and so on. But here, really now from works, I remember like 2 years ago or something, I did like a long haul with the Model X and also higher speed German motorway and so on. And I was really annoyed by, like, when I was driving 140, 150 kilometers an hour. And I really was like getting like, like a constant sound on my ears, and I would say, I really have to drive slower because it's getting so annoying from the wind noises. Yeah, it's totally such a German problem, right? Yeah, I admit that. But now, that's totally gone. So I would really say this car here now gets the stamp German motorway proven. Congratulations, Elon. And there was the rattling sun visor here before. That's gone. There were also other, annoying sounds here from time to time. They're all gone. So I really have to ask myself, I could always say Tesla has the best concept, they have the most efficient electric motors. Then again, build quality wise, blah, blah, blah. They're lacking behind the Germans a little bit, that will take some time. It seems to be gone now. I mean, there's some little things here and there, maybe, but I really have to say, the German premium manufacturers, they have to look out even here for the existing vehicle, not the all-new models, even for X and S, they really have to look out. Tesla is coming more and more and more and more, and there's hardly any difference then in these cases, So very, very interesting. Also, I always have some in-depth deep talks with the engineers and managers in the automotive industry, and of course that we can also have some influence that they build more sustainable cars and so on. But they were always saying first of all it was those Tesla guys, whatever, that's like toy cars and stuff. 1 or 2 years later, yeah, very interesting. Yeah, we have to really take a look at that. And they have great concepts, and they do this and this very great. We have to take them seriously. But we have better driving performance. Our engines are better, still than electric cars, and noise insulation is better, and this and that. And then again, 2 years later, it's they really helped us in pushing the electric vehicles on the market, and we have to respect it. But we're still much better in this and this and that. But now, yeah, it's getting really dangerous. So everyone from the German automotive industry watching this, take this car out for a spin and then think again. We can also put the suspension very, very low, for example, so we have better ground contact. And let's now do one more acceleration when we're already at speed from 80 kilometers an hour. Let's see. Well, that's 180 kilometers an hour, and wow, once again, awesome acceleration. Of course, then also the energy consumption goes up to about 63 kilowatt hours per kilometers, so that's almost double. So once again, we also find that with other electric vehicles, you have almost double the energy consumption when you have the max performance or something. And here lane change with this new air suspension, even in a comfort mode, wow, really well done. Of course, switching things around here while driving is not too good. Steering mode sport, and we have a little bit more resistance. We can have the suspension set to the sport, then it's stiffer, so lane change would be even better. But it gets a little bit less comfortable then. So steering is quite good, I would say. It could be maybe giving you a little bit more natural feedback, but just a notch. But overall, I'm quite happy with that. So really, once again, I have to say, so many things have been improved, very well done. And you see, I go off the throttle, and usually a combustion engine would stay with that consumption, with that high one. But here, again, great regenerative braking, and our consumption figure is almost immediately back to a rather normal status, because I gained so much power back once again. And that is also my point. A Tesla Model 3 with a different suspension, aftermarket suspension, will be one of the best and most economical private track vehicles, because you don't need so much brakes, you don't need so much power. You can always use the regenerative braking. Really interesting. So once again, good performance here on the motorway. Really, as I said earlier, now German Autobahn proof here, even for the Model X, even because it's standing upright, but it has a great drag coefficient as well. So a very efficient car once again. That's one of the bad things. And I told you earlier that the rear engine, the new one from the Model 3, was put in here into the front. Reason again being that you need more powerful motors here, so motors, not engines, more powerful motors in the rear, and even more so here in the performance model, where we have even more power from the rear. Wow, just can say wow, this performance here is really great, and almost all of the things I have criticized before with the Model X, which was still lacking, where they still had to improve things, this has been improved now, and it really once again proves my point. I once said that the German manufacturers They don't have the best concepts yet, but they have the best, look and feel, build quality, the best execution. Tesla has the best concept, but not the best execution. But that's easier to do. It's easier to work on the execution than to work on the whole different concept. And that is exactly what has happened here and what is still happening. City driving, let's do an acceleration while steering. This will be very interesting in the ludicrous mode once again. Whoa, and that was pretty stable. You see there was, of course the all-wheel drive, so both electric motors, evening that out pretty well. So, wow, so this was extremely fast, but still very collected. And then let's put it back here to the chill mode. That's more than enough. By the way, again, if you see something of that screen flickering, that's just on camera because the shutter speed of this action cam cannot be adjusted. Here, more recuperation is also possible now, more or stronger recuperative braking because of the new electric motor. And when you set it here to the standard recuperation, this really means it's a very harsh recuperation. You can use one pedal driving. So when I lift my foot off throttle, even going downhill, there's a strong deceleration. And especially if you have passengers next to you, you use this car not in a way that you always lift your foot that's interesting. You always lift your foot off the throttle, foot off the throttle totally and instantaneously. You rather do it gently, for example, to adjust the decreasing speed. You just do it when you really need strong deceleration. And when you have set the stopping mode to a complete stop, then it really recuperates or stops until zero, until it stands still. When you have set it to the creeping mode, that means when you lift your foot off the throttle while standing still, it creeps forward, rolls forward slowly like a normal automatic gearbox in an ICE. When you have set to that mode, then the car will not stop and not go to 0 kilometers or miles per hour when you're standing still. So that really then depends on your driving mode. But usually I would set it to the creep mode because I think it's nice that it just creeps a little bit forward from time to time then. But then again, this coming to a total stop when just releasing the throttle pedal, this has also something, so maybe I will switch that now. I don't know. Great improvement definitely here once again from the air suspension, which is now adaptive, and this is so much more comfortable. I wouldn't say it's still not the best air suspension on the market. This is something, where the German premium manufacturers still have a little bit, something in advance. Usually I would also set it here to the most comfortable node, but even here in the comfort setting from the air suspension, it's still sporty enough definitely, but it has a huge boost of comfort if you compare it to the pre-Raven model, definitely. And once again, when I'm standing still here, it is so silent in here now, so the noise dampening, this was something also where I said, they have a great concept, but the Audi, BMW, Mercedes, they have so much better noise insulation, and so this is gone now, this difference. The noise insulation here now is really superb, and we already confirmed that once again when we were driving high speed earlier. So really, really cool. And even here in this chill mode, this is so totally enough for this vehicle, 50 to almost 90, just almost instantaneously. And it's actually more relaxed to go in the chill mode. It's more than enough power. You use a little bit less energy. There's less stress then on your passengers and so on. That's really, really cool. And as for the better range, increased efficiency, I can really say, even if you go 100 kilometers or 120 kilometers an hour, 60, 70 miles per hour at that speed, then you can score some, like now for example, some figures like 20 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. That's about 32 kilowatt hours on 100 miles, and that would mean like a real range of around 500 kilometers and around a little bit more maybe than 300 miles, and that's totally fine. And if you're more at a slower speed, for example, not really like, you know, on the motorway, then you could even score better range figures. And of course, when you really exceed it, as for the acceleration, then you would have less range. But I think that is what I just said, a realistic figure. Let's see if the autopilot here, which is activated by pulling that lower lever twice, that's coping with the construction lane here. And so far, so good. Realizing lanes left and right. Maybe because this one here is an American, and also realizing that, you know, yellow lanes are normal. Here in Germany they are not. They're just used in construction lanes, and the normal lines are white. But so far, keeping me very well on the lane. Of course, you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel at the moment still. Level 2 autonomous driving. But so far, so good. Very well done. There's also an semi-autonomous lane change available. I can show that to you very soon. Oh, now the exit of the construction lane. Is the car doing that? Yeah, I didn't steer indeed. So now, let's see. I just hit the turning indicator. Here the car is switching the lane. Very well done. So yeah, that's actually fine. Satisfied with that. So, of course, most of the time it's more fun to steer yourself and so on. Is the autopilot here? I mean, it's not really an autopilot, so the name is a little bit deceiving, definitely. Is it the best on the market? Definitely not. So I think there also the traditional manufacturers have some more smooth solutions here, and yeah, a little bit more refined. Here sometimes the steering wheel is a little bit nervous, so although Tesla is claiming they have the best system, they don't. But they have a lot of data, you know, like this cloud data, so maybe they can do a next step then very soon. It was announced already. Let's see what about that. Here also at the standard highway speed, 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour. Just really good in, again, for noise insulation, and so stable and calm and collected on the road. So this car has been improved in driving by so much. So this is a significant step forward once again here for the Model X, and the same will also count for the Model S. And now to our conclusion for today with the updated Tesla Model X performance and the updated Raven version. Well, exterior-wise, still a very sleek design. However, the rear is a little bit bulky than in, I think, but just personal preference. I don't think, to me, it's the most beautiful SUV in the world there is, but definitely a very unique styling and a very unique concept. Of course, here with the Falcon Wings doors, but even more so in the interior, where we have the very futuristic concept, which even today could be a concept vehicle on a motor show, with the panoramic windscreen, which is the biggest in the world, definitely. And of course, also with the all-vegan seats, so very animal-friendly. Yeah, they have to work on that steering wheel wrapping here, in contrast to the Model 3 and the Model Y in the X and in the S, but talked about that earlier as well. Great sound system, a nice feeling while driving. Although there are hardly any buttons left, the car is easy to control. For example, also with the steering commands with your right thumb. So overall, this is a very great concept of a vehicle. Also one of the most efficient cars out there, considering especially that size. The Raven update, updated range, even more performance. You don't really need the performance model. You can easily just go with the long range model. Most of the time I'm driving this in the chill, in the reduced power mode, because otherwise it's just too much power this car has. Of course, an extreme acceleration. This is really impressive. But even more so in this Raven update, the updated air suspension, which is now more comfortable, and the great improved noise, like all the vibration things, noise, the overall less wind noise and so on, less rolling noise. So this has been a great improvement here now. So we can really say, so far, Tesla had the best concept, as for the, whole efficiency and for, the environmentally friendly concept. But then the German manufacturers had the best, look and feel, build quality and best noise insulation and so on and so on. So it were the little things that were missing with the Tesla Model X that were making it maybe a little bit worse. Now, these are the little things that make it even better. Very interesting findings for today. So, what do you think? Tell me your comments here about the updated Tesla Model X. Also tune into more Tesla reviews we have. And of course, to the standard competitors. See you there. Welcome from the desert with Thomas and the all-new Audi e-tron. In this full review, we're going to take a detailed look on the exterior, the interior and the driving experience of the series production model of this Audi EV. Today also with road driving dynamic and also a range test. So, what's the performance in the different aspects? Please join us in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. Here you can see the LED daytime running light signature. It starts already with LED headlamps, optional the ones you can see here, the LED matrix lights, and those also have a special high beam function then. Yeah, from the front it looks like the other Audi SUVs, for example, with this big single frame grille. However, you see the grille is a little bit more closed, just little openings here, and I also have an interesting cutaway model. So behind this very front grille there is basically another layer, and there you have some active layers. They can open when the cooling is needed and they close again when the cooling is not needed, and that improves the wind efficiency then. So pretty interesting for sure. And a lot of sensors are of course being used. For example, you can also see in the front camera and some more sensors here in the front, and the big e-tron badge right there. So you can see with this vehicle, when we see it now in the series production model, they're not going the way, oh, EVs have to be special. They more make it normal looking with some accentuations, and I think that's also a right way. What do you think? 4.90 meters or 16'1" is the total length of the Audi e-tron. So for European taste, that's a full-size SUV basically. And I think just from a basic shape, we'll soon show you another Audi Q8 review. To me, it is basically an electric Q8. Those ones here are already quite bigger rims, so in this case 20-inch. There are different styles available. You get styles which look like really electric vehicle alike, more streamlined, and then you get some, normal old school wheels. You can pick that definitely. You can even go a little bit bigger if you want. There's the e-tron badge right there, also the charging port, we'll soon feature that too. Then there's the design line, dropping line right there. And I'll also show different colors. This one here, our main color for today, is called Galaxy Blue. And depending on the individual light, it looks a little bit brighter or darker, sometimes even a little bit greenish. My favorite one would be the Antigua Blue. That is a bright Thomas Blue, as we call it here on Autogefühl. But there's also, for example, a so-called Siam Beige. Also different depending on the light it is in. And also we got a Catalonia Red. So those four colors here for you today. There will be more available quite soon. And you see in vehicle colors also some small wing and already forming some stronger shoulders. So it is not exactly an SUV coupe, but comes close to it a little bit. Here, crossover wheel arches. If you like, you can also go for the S-line and then have it painted in vehicle color. So all those big electric vehicles weigh over 2 tons, and here 700 kilograms of that is the battery, so that's the main weight point. You save weight for the not existing engine, but then again the battery. And I also have a cutaway model there for you, where you can see how the battery is being placed in the lower part of the vehicle. That brings the center of gravity down, also gives you a good agile performance, promised at least, and 50-50 weight distribution front rear. There's a motor in the front and an electric motor in the rear, so 2 electric motors overall, and so there's no physical connection between front and rear, but you still have the all-wheel drive. We can also take a look at individual cells right there. Pretty interesting for sure, always to take a look at those cutaway models. And now to something very special. First of all, let me say, those virtual mirrors, the camera that is placed inside here, is not standard, it's an option. So the base car, and everyone can go for that, just for normal mirrors. Whew, glad you can. Then there's a camera here, just for the round view camera, for the infotainment system, but the main camera, of course, for the screen inside is right here. And well, you can also fold it in, by the way, just when someone hits it, for example, for safety. But the main question is, since we can drive this car on the road here today, also with public traffic, is it really useful? So far, maybe you have seen fancy Instagram posts about it or so, because it's very visual. You can really take good photographs and video of it. It looks cool, but is it also cool and useful to use? We will find out very soon, and I can tell you, it will be very surprising. One thing to say in advance, they are also connected with the blind spot monitor. When you look at them and then have some, traffic next to you, it also flashes yellow, for example. That's definitely a very helpful thing. But what I'm really looking forward to is, how does it perform just when you have very normal situations? Looking at the rear end, wow, what a spectacular landscape here in the desert near Abu Dhabi. So you see the light strip goes all the way across the vehicle. Interesting LED daytime running light also at the sides. There's an e-tron badge right there, and you see that this top part hangs a little bit over, but over I think it's not too daring, rather elegant design here too. And those strange naming stuff, 55 Quattro, 55, well, why are they doing that? They want to be able that you compare it, for example, to a petrol engine, which is also maybe, or diesel, which also at 55, that you can see, oh, they're in the same horsepower range. But how many horsepowers? That doesn't leave any trace or hint for that. So what do you think here of the design of the all-new Audi e-tron? And by the way, the towing capacity is at 1.8 tons or 4,000 pounds, and that's pretty much reasonable for an electric vehicle. Not so many electric vehicles offer towing capacity anyway overall yet, but they do. So about charging this 95 kilowatt hour battery, you just open the charging port right there, and there's the AC charger. If you open the lower one, you also get the DC charger. AC charging is either with 11 kilowatt or with 22 kilowatt if you go for that option, or then the DC with 150 kilowatt. And well, you need the according station for that. We have it right here, and then we just put it in like this. And in this case, it automatically starts charging, and we can also check it at the interior. And we do get S standard, it's pretty cool. This is the other side, so not the driver's side, the co-driver side. Another AC charger, so the DC charging just possible at the driver's side. This one here is just, most people usually charge at home, maybe then with AC. And this is a good possibility that you don't have to move to a certain spot at the charging station or so, or at home, that you can have the access from both sides. Pretty good idea. This is the car key. The e-tron does not get a very specific key, but just a special badge it has on the key. You can also get a soft close. This one does not have it, so when we don't have a soft close, then we can test the door closing sound. That sounds very solid. So let's open it, and we have a beige, a bright interior style here, which is pretty cool color-wise. A nice bright Alcantara at the inside of the doors. This one then is a soft leatherette cover. The top part here of the door is also from soft material. Door handles, and if you have those mirrors for the side mirrors, like the camera side mirrors we've been talking about, there you have, for example, I can already see it. I can already show you right there. You can also adjust them a little bit. Yeah, so you can change the view a little bit right here. Hello, hey guys. And then you can also change the other side of the mirrors. Now the rest of the interior, you can see it is basically an electric Q8 also interior wise. Really modern and stylish, but a lot of black piano use for sure. This one here, as for the decor elements, you can see this is a structure. So it's a rather rough structure, but it feels good and high class too. If we focus at the seats, there are 3 different seat forms. There's a base seat, there's a sport seat with more side accentuation, and this one is the so-called multi-contour seat, the most comfortable one. The seat form is really great. However, here they lack sustainability because they only offer animal skin surfaces. Well, at least there's no seat without it. So you can get in the sport seat an Alcantara on the inside, but there are still animal skin surfaces somewhere else and on the outside and stuff. And there's also a seat available with some fabric parts, but still also leather in it. And then this one here, the full animal skin equipment. In their new e-tron GT, the sports car concept, they showed an animal-free interior. That's where the future is. But we clearly see that Audi is not in the future yet and not in the present, but rather in the past as for this aspect. Then let's take seating position. Again, the seat form is super comfortable, so they have taken a giant leap forward for that. So at the moment, those Audi seats are the most comfortable, or among the most comfortable in the business. That's really cool. Height-wise, it's also not a problem. I'm 1,86 m or 6'1", still leaves a lot of headroom. This one here without a panoramic roof, so that of course always gives you more headroom. In this case, the electric steering wheel control. You can control in height and in reach. But of course, almost everything you see here is still an extra, so you can easily go up with the prices. Then the electric seat control, we also have a seat massage function when you press this small button, and then you can change different massage functions in the central infotainment system. And this is also pretty cool. Again, it's an option, of course, but that's a pretty cool option. So if you want some more comfort on long-term rides with an electric car, well, mid-term rides with an electric vehicle, then you should probably go for the massage function. So yeah, I mean, you sit very comfortable here, and it's really good that I, at the moment, also have the Audi Q8, so I can really compare it and say, yeah, also seating-wise, interior-wise, it's an electric Audi Q8, and I think the overall impression is really good. The material build quality is really superb, and it's a really good, comfortable position. I can just, sit here and relax and enjoy the massage. Interior overview. First of all, the screens. 12.3 digital instruments, 10.1 top screen, 8.6 lower screen with a climate unit. Soon more details to each individual screen. We have this structured surface here again. On the top, e-tron badge logo and a leatherette cover right there. And this one is also soft touch. We can play around with it a little bit. And the head-up display unit in the very front right there. This one overlaps just a little bit. An interesting part is definitely also this lower part with this special shifting lever. You put it back to put a gear in and park at the side. This one is completely new. And then you have this flying middle console, which is a little bit strange because, you can... I mean, it shall be a very new design element, but I think I'm not sure if it's really useful, I think a design also has to be useful. And then inside you can also find some more space to put things, or maybe also the key, another 12-volt power supply. There's also 2 USB slots right there, and you can also fold out cup holders then. Last but not least, there's this middle armrest where you can, for example, store a microfiber tissue to have all those surfaces clean all the time. Oh, that's cool, right? Turquoise mortars. Nice. And look at that, the inductive charging port for your smartphone is a little bit hidden. It's just the very left side of the middle console, and you have to squeeze your smartphone in a little bit, then it's hold tight and against this inductive charging area. And just to show you, if you do not have the electric steering control here for the adjustment, then it looks like this, and then it's a manual adjustment. You release it right here, then you can still do it in all ways. It's also an easy system. With the digital instruments, you're pretty flexible. You have this view change, for example, if you want the map smaller or bigger. Of course, you can read the GPS very well, but you can also scroll through radio functions, assistance systems, and so on. Head-up display, you can take a look at the current speed, allowed speed, and also some driving assistant information, and also GPS route when it's running. In this digital mirror, again, when we really sit here and the door is closed, then we can also see this is here the side of the vehicle then. You cannot make it closer to the vehicle. You can just make it more far away from the vehicle, and then again hit the reset button, which is again put a little bit too low, I think. And then if we switch here, we can see there's some work in there. Of course, there's nothing happening here now because we are actually controlling the other side. So here we go. Now I'm using the touch pad or this touch screen on the other side, and the passenger side is being controlled. Oh, there's my backpack right behind the car. But then again, take a look at where this thing is actually placed. I think it's also too low and too much at the side of the doors. Again, I'm really not a fan of this system. Are you? So let's take a look at those screens. Again, the GPS is really fast. Pretty cool. Looks, of course, nice with this satellite view. It's all with touch. And then the first thing I always do with those displays with Audi, I go here to the MMI settings and then deactivate this touchscreen feedback, because I always have to press like really hard. And the thing is here, when it's activated, do it like this, like on the smartphone, nothing is happening. It's maybe like they're thinking people want to have real buttons on the touchscreen. Is that the thought? I'm not sure. If you deactivate it, then you can click like you're used to at the smartphone. You still get this clicking feedback. If you like, you can also deactivate it. But here it's also then easy to control, and you can just click on stuff. That's, I think, how it's supposed to be, actually. There are also some special charging modes here, and visualization, for example, for the e-tron. That is special then for the e-tron. The rest is basically the same as we know from A6, A7, A8, Q8, and so on. And also now the small Audis. Phone connect via Bluetooth, or also via Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. That's also possible. It would appear right here then, here in the phone apps. Then in the lower part you get the climate control like this, or you can hold your finger and browse up and down, or use the voice control. Set temperature to 22 degrees.
I'll lower the temperature to 22 degrees.
Oh, we got a male voice today. Interesting. So that's also possible for that. And what's also interesting, that when you when you put in a new route, for example, then the lower part switches either, that you can type in something, some letters, or you can also write. That's possible. Or then again, use the voice control, which is also working quite nice. Usually, let's test it. Take me to Dubai.
Please wait a moment while I search for the destinations. Could you say the line number, please?
So, well, that's not exactly Dubai now, but I could choose a line number now. Let's try it again. Yeah, let's cancel again, just go once more. Navigate to Dubai city center.
I'm afraid it's not possible to enter a street in this town using spoken commands. Please use the MMI touch screen.
Okay, about that. But, you know, at least in Germany, this voice command usually worked very well. Maybe it's a problem here with the region. I don't know. So let's get in the rear. The rear door does not open too wide. The top part here is a little bit harder than in the front, but not entirely hard, so still okay for me. You see, you have to come around a little bit that you can really see me as for the door, but still is enough space, of course. And headroom-wise, it's also no problem here in the back. Again, I'm 1.86 m or 6'1". Knee room is also fine. So, I mean, it's not a short car, so the package is not the best. It should have even a little bit more legroom considering the length. But you can see with 4 adults, absolutely no problem. And also the seating position here in the rear, as you see it rather upright in this SUV, is really good. So it's super comfortable here. ISOFIX at the outside of the seats. You can flip the seats already from here. We'll also do that from the trunk, of course. And then if we go to this middle part, we have some cup holders right there and some more room. Here we go. You can also just use the middle part as a ski hatch. That's possible. And then there's this thing about electric vehicles. So you don't need a physical connection from front to rear axle if you want the all-wheel drive. So you have engines, well, motors, electric motors at both axles. So that's then the advantage that you can keep the middle tunnel here flat. You don't need a big middle tunnel because, you don't need, something transverse going right there. So indeed it is rather flat here. So you can better put your feet here, for example. But then they put this whole middle unit here. It's actually quite large. So my feet do not fit right there. So I have to put my feet next to it anyway. In the lower part there are 2 more USB supplies and 12-volt power supply. And then this whole climate unit here. I think if they could have made maybe a little bit less voluminous, it would be better here to sit also as a third passenger. However, yes, most people drive maybe with maximum 4 people in cars, but I think if you have an electric vehicle, it would be better to have a more open space here, like Tesla does, for example, in the Model X or in the Model S. So that's better done there, of course. However, Audi has the higher build quality because they have so much experience with that. So there's definitely a pro and contra. Sitting here in the middle seat, I mean, it's of course a little bit harder here as for the surface. It still works with the headroom, yes. And it is better than in a non-electric vehicle because of the lower middle tunnel. But again, I wouldn't recommend it also for longer trips. So first let's open the front. You have to unleash it from the inside where you usually unleash the engine hood bay. But here you can see there's a cover first. You can see some of the electric parts here already. Wiper fluid is right here. So and then you put this one here up and have some 60 liters in the front. For example, to store all of the equipment here for the cables, different cables for household plug, AC charging and so on, so that you have your real trunk then clean in the rear. The trunk, either open it here, press the key, or use the foot kick opening mechanism if you have ordered that option. The loading sill here is relatively high, you have to say. Then there are no rails here at the side, so it's wobbling a little bit, but overall still a quite good quality. There's a net if you want to store something, hold something tight. There's some room below that here, but there's extra equipment put in here. You can also fit it with a replacement tire. You can see there's also a special cable for a recuperation app, so that's not a stock, so to say. 12-volt power supply. So this setup here is 600 liters. That's of course very limited, especially in height. I will soon also take the measurements. And the maximum figure is 1,725 liters. So if you flip the seats from here, that's quite practical. And then you can also load things through. And just to put a backpack here inside, you can see the size. And then if I put a backpack in the back, the backpack in the back of the back trunk, then see it doesn't really fit. So that's, you know, because it's falling down here. As for the roof lid, if to put it here, then it also still works with the cover. But even that, you can see that one is still working, but I can't pull it much more in the back because again the height is limited. Still, the trunk overall is actually quite well usable. So from the back of the trunk until the back of the back seats, it's just over 1 meter in length. And here I put the head restraints up now on the right side, and there the head restraint is still in. There you can see the height difference, so you can get the seats a little bit flatter if you like. And again, 2/3, 1/3 split, or also the single split here just in the middle. And the width here is just also over 1 meter, so that's very well usable. And the height, well, at the very rear, this is just 35 centimeters, and then at the rails right here, this is then, yeah, about 57 centimeters. So here we are, road driving with the all-new Audi e-tron, and we'll start with an acceleration, this electric acceleration. 6.6 seconds is the acceleration figure, 0 to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour with 360 horsepower output, or in the boost mode 407 horsepower output and 5.7 seconds is the acceleration. Let's see if we can get that boost mode activated. We'll put it in dynamic mode, and yeah, we'll also preload it just a little bit. Let's see how that acceleration goes. Preload 50%, and wow, that's already 1 hour 30 it was. That was super quick. And due to this all-wheel drive, so one motor each axle, also a very, let's say, flawless feeling. Pretty interesting. What do you think? Did you check the time code? How fast did we really go? And now to our first real driving part on the road and also in public traffic. And let me start to tell you something about the recuperation modes, because that's really essential for driving. So there's two ways. I can set the recuperation to automatic, then the car is predominantly just rolling. And when I hit the brakes, we can also see it here on our special prepared iPad, where we can see if the car is using the brakes. That would be in red. So, or when it's green, or in turquoise. Those two are recuperation. So turquoise is just basically the rolling recuperation. Green would be a little stronger recuperation. Orange is when I accelerate, so use the power. So you can see here when I lift my foot off the throttle, turns turquoise. Then it's just a rolling recuperation, and we'll see the green recuperation later. And when I would be braking really hard, then it's also red. Yeah, that's hard to hold the third camera then, of course. So, and the thing is, when I'm in this automatic mode, then the car is predominantly set on rolling. That's not a one pedal feeling. So, however, when I use the shifting pedal, I can set 2 recuperation modes, and then the car is recuperating harder when I go off the throttle. But as soon, like this, so recuperating, for example, on the second mode, but as soon as I go on the throttle, this is basically deleted by the car. And the car only goes into this recuperation mode, for example, when there is maybe like an intersection coming or something like that. However, if I now, on the infotainment system, pick manual, then it's more like, you know, from Tesla, for example, like this one pedal feeling, because then the car is remembering what I said on a manual basis. I can have it with the just rolling here, nothing's happening, car's just rolling, which would be more efficient if I want to roll the longest way, of course, so rolling is always more efficient than recuperating, unless you want to reduce the speed anyway, you know, and that's quite often the case. And there you can set the first recuperation mode, and then also when I hit the throttle again, it stays in this mode and goes back to the reducing the speed as soon as I go off the throttle. And also in the second recuperation mode, and that one would be coming closer than to this one pedal feeling or driving. So I think this automatic mode they did for customers who are used to driving normal petrol engine cars maybe. However, if you think about if you go off the throttle there, then you also don't have a rolling, you know. You also have some engine brake. Unless you have a modern automatic system which also uses these rolling or coasting effects or something. And this manual mode is rather than when you have, you know, sorry, when you want to use this one pedal feeling. So you hardly use the brakes ever. And Audi promises that in 90% of the cases, the car would be using the recuperation energy or regenerative braking anyway, and you don't need the real brakes. So that's for the theory, and already some views here on our iPad. You can see here when I go off the throttle, then recuperation again is being used. But what about the agile driving? So we're going up the hill now, and then we're going down the hill and have the really heavy recuperation. Let's see how that one plays out. So first, I'll go already here in the dynamic mode. Then I also have the boost function available, which we used in this 0 to 100 or 62 miles an hour acceleration. Otherwise, the boost function in the normal driving modes, it's not available then. In the roundabout, you see this car always has a great handling indeed. It feels a little bit smaller than you would actually expect, and that is due to this all-wheel drive system, the electric all-wheel drive, where you can distribute the torque basically where you want it. So really depending on the situation where the torque goes to which wheel. So at the moment I'm setting the standard recuperation mode, the manual one, the manual recuperation mode, because to me this is somehow more natural to an electric vehicle, you know. If I drive an electric vehicle, I somehow expect this one pedal driving feeling, and I don't use the brakes unless, you know, there's an emergency situation and I really need to use the brakes. But now, of course, you can see that very well in this map perspective. There are very nice winding roads here ahead on Rebel Rafet Street. Also very interesting landscape. And there you can see that the steering is really precise of this vehicle, so there's no real dead zone of the steering wheel. Also, you don't have to put much power in it, but the interesting thing they really achieved here, usually when you have a very sporty one, you sometimes have an arcade feeling, but here it is not hard to control, but at the same time it gives you a very natural driving feeling. And usually it's not so much fun to go around those bends in big SUVs, and it isn't big SUV, but still it's a lot of fun and it's really agile to drive. The torque is somehow rear-wheel biased. That also helps with this sporty experience for sure. So it's also what we experienced with our desert ride in Namibia already, that the car really feels very, very sporty. Now, when I go off the throttle, I think it's a really natural feeling somehow, because when I go off the throttle, I really want to reduce speed a little bit, and when I have this recuperation mode on manual, it stays that way. So I somehow don't want the car to decide then when to do what. I want to be in control of my recuperation. But you can surely also argue for another solution, that you have sometimes the rolling, and then when, for example, the ACC is realizing something, then it's recuperating there. I think it's really what you're used to and what you want, and you can surely argue for both. Also, just listen how silent it is. So we don't have any engine sound, maybe just like this little EV sound we are hearing. And together with the great noise insulation, it gives me a very calm and silent driving feeling, although it's sporty, and that's definitely fun. And I'm not necessarily missing any engine sound here. It would be maybe a little bit more entertaining to have a V8 sound or something on camera, definitely. But you can still enjoy some sporty driving, and somehow you can also better enjoy the landscape then. And of course, if there are some luggage stuff in the rear flying around, then you can also hear that on camera probably. Wow, what a great twisty winding road here. So this very flexible electric all-wheel drive also gives you the possibility to do some torque steering. So for example, put more torque to the outer wheel than in the corner, and to the inner wheel a little bit less torque, and that pushes the car also in the corner. That's again something that helps with the agility of the car. However, if I want to react a little bit faster as for the cars behind me, I always have to look down into those side mirrors, whereas the electric support for the blind spot warner, that is very well integrated, shown you that earlier. But other than that, so far my experience while driving is that it's more distracting, and you lose some time, because when I look to the side mirror, the normal one, I'm in an area where at the same time I see what is going on in the front of me. But when I look to the screen, I have a second or two where I don't see anything what is going on in front of me. And depending on the speed you're driving, it can be really a couple of seconds where you're basically driving blindfolded. So really great road to drive here, and we're going up about 1,000 meters higher, and this should also deplete the battery just a bit. Later on in this review we'll also do like just flat driving range tests, see how that one plays out as for the very realistic range. And after we've depleted the battery here, we'll go downhill again for the recuperation test and see how much energy can this car actually regenerate when we're going downhill, because it claims to have one of the best regenerative braking system on the market. We'll see how that one plays out very soon. First of all, some more agile driving experience here. Maybe I also heard it from the outside, it's like little EV sound, and you might have heard that starting from 2019, beginning of 2019, I think at least somewhat in the year there are different different embargoes running for that when it has to be implemented finally. So all the new EVs, you can just remember that they have to have a special sound that says, "Hello, I'm electrical, I'm coming," and that does have some sense for sure, because if you cannot see, for example, then you need to hear an electric vehicle, and they're just so silent that in public traffic you need to have a chance to hear that. That's, I think, a very important aspect for sure, even though, I mean, it would be cool if they are silent, but then again, also people need to hear that they're coming, so you can understand both perspectives for sure. So we're going higher and higher and higher, and some more agile corners. Even when I accelerate in the corner, the car stays true to the road. I also don't have too much body roll as for the air suspension. It is rather set on a stiffer tone, the air suspension, so sporty setup for that. Oh, there's another e-tron coming. How did that one get up here so fast? They're already recuperating down there again on the way. So I can just stress what I found with prototype driving this car. It's really sporty. It feels smaller than that it actually is. due to this active and flexible all-wheel drive, the low center of gravity, the precise steering, and at the same time the great noise insulation. So it's such a great car to drive. And you know, in our reviews we always give you pros and cons, and also filming action here. And definitely the biggest pro of this car is that among all the electric vehicles, the big and the small ones, it's one of the best ones to drive and one of the most fun and agile to drive. Next, maybe just to the BMW i3, which is a way smaller car, of course, and therefore way more agile. But again, this concept they're using here really hides a little bit the size of the vehicle. And the Audi Q8 I've been driving recently also with the ICE. It's also a lot of fun. They can surely be compared. They just have a different drivetrain. And now the regenerative braking test. So here it's basically, it doesn't matter if I'm going to automatic or manual, because either I step on the brake now the whole time. Now you can see the green is the braking recuperation on the iPad app, and the turquoise again would just be the coasting here. When I'm just going off the throttle, coasting, recuperation, and green is the braking recuperation. But what I'm doing now, so I don't have to step on the brake all the time, I'm setting the second recuperation mode. And well, no matter if I'm in automatic or manual now, it will stay that way. If I'm in the automatic recuperation mode, if I would go on the gas just once, then it would basically, go back again. In manual, it would stay again when I lift the throttle. So that's the basic difference. But here, for example, you see that the recuperation is actually quite active. So even though we're going down the hill, I am not gaining any speed. And we are at a range of 233 kilometers at the moment. And at the same time, I'm also counting the kilometers we are going down. And actually, well, we are too slow even, so I have to accelerate a little bit. Let's see how many kilometers we are going and how much range we are gaining back. That's the key thing now. So now the iPad is turning orange once more, so when I'm accelerating, he is also going straight. Lift the throttle, I'm coasting again. You could argue for the automatic mode, for example, when you're on the motorway, that on the motorway coasting is more suitable somehow, and then you use the brake. And again, if you want always the one pedal feeling without having to change it again, then this manual recuperation mode would be the way to go. Of course, you could also somewhat coast with the manual mode. You just don't go off the throttle then, but stay a little bit on the throttle. That's how you do it, for example, in Tesla. So now we're going down here just steadily. And I went to the manual mode now and went in the second recuperation mode, that we can have the maximum recuperation if we want it. And at the moment it's the coasting recuperation still. But the most interesting thing you'll probably find now is, no matter what I do or how I reduce the speed, we will not get into this red area on the iPad, which would be the disc brakes. And so you can see that the disc brake, the normal brakes of the car, will probably not be needed. So now we can reduce speed. I just lift the throttle. This one is still the coasting recuperation. And even now the car is reducing speed just a little bit. So even though more than 2 tons are rolling down the hill, we are not really increasing the speed. Now in the corner I can apply some more brakes. See, it's still, there it is. There was a short moment where I was using the real brakes because there was a little bit more braking power needed then, but that's it basically. And so far it looks quite good. We already gained 2 kilometers of range and we went 2 kilometers down the hill. So it really seems that when you're going down a steep hill, that this car can gain back 1 kilometer of range when you're going 1 kilometer down the hill. And would be the same in miles, of course, or accordingly. That's really interesting. And we don't have to be in the full charging zone for that all the time, even though we're in the half charging zone, so to say, at the moment, when I'm maintaining that speed. Maybe I can also go, when I use the right pedal here, I can switch between recuperation mode 2 or mode 1. So here maybe at the moment the mode 1 is okay. So now I'm staying in the mode 1 and not doing anything on the brakes, not doing anything on the throttle. And for example, when I'm next to the approaching corner, I can go to the recuperation mode 2, and we are gaining a little bit more back. Or maybe 1 again. So you can also just control the car with the pedals here. Almost feels like you would be using a hand. What are they doing there? Pick up with a loose pipe rolling over the street. Interesting to see. Now again a little bit more speed, using the right pedal, mode 1. That's really funny that you just control the speed here with the shift pedals. I mean, why not? That's also an experience. Now a little bit more recuperation again. Mode 2. Outside of the corner, a little bit faster out. Mode 1. Or maybe mode 0. Now rolling, even a little bit faster. That's really interesting. I think it's the first time I controlled the speed really with the pedals. Mode 2 for a little bit faster. Oh, now we're going faster in the corner. Now also those transverse powers are also braking us, of course. The tire friction, not hitting the brakes, not hitting the brakes. Now we're getting slower, of course, because we're in the corner. And now we're at 249 kilometers. And we went down 4 kilometers. So that was not that much. Now 250. So our range is increasing and increasing. And that's of course now something where there's a big advantage if you compare it to an combustion engine car. There the energy is just lost. And here, we have the problem with the range, because if you think about now the according Audi Q8, if I have the 3-liter diesel there and fuel it up, I can approximately drive 1,000 kilometers. Or it would be like 600 miles before refueling, and here it's just a little bit over 300 kilometers or like 180 miles. So that's a big difference. So not such a big difference if you compare it to the petrol engine, of course. But then again, you really have to think about if that makes sense. But however, if you have, for example, a topography where you go uphill and downhill quite a lot, then it can still make sense. Now going down faster. Again, now we're using the second recuperation mode. And even there, still going slower, 255, 5 kilometers. So now it's not exactly 1 kilometer per 1 kilometer down, but I think it will increase now when we're going downhill. 256. So you see that goes quite fast, the steeper it is, of course. So I think we could prove here already that the recuperation system is indeed pretty efficient here in this car. And we see how it is at the real downhill of the vehicle. What was it? What have we been starting with? With 237 or something? I think I have to scroll back in the video and see myself. So that was even, I think an even better result, seemed like. So now we, when it was a little bit steeper, we made up some energy. So now we went down 6 kilometers, and we're at a range of almost 260 kilometers now. So that was even more, so because that was not a kilometer we've been driving here. I think we were starting at 237. So when it was really steep here, we are almost gaining like 2 kilometers of range per going 1 kilometer down. It's pretty impressive. So we also have some off-road riding for you here today, just a little bit soft off-roading with the Audi e-tron. Those are here again the prototype vehicles because, well, they probably thought, you know, they can get wasted now on the off-road, let's put them on rough terrain, and the other ones, the series production models, the shiny ones, let's keep them on the road. So the air suspension can raise a little bit, so there's a little difference then. The total difference is, instructor, the total difference is 7.6 centimeters, so it goes 5 centimeters up on demand here on the off-road mode and 2.6 centimeters down. So when you go 2.6 centimeters down, then when you're going faster, for example, it's also nice to see in the front now, 2.6 centimeters down, when you're going faster, the car has less wind resistance, is better for handling. And here again, put it all the way up the 5 centimeters, that's then the overall difference, 7.6. This car is already squeaking a little bit, probably had some more off-road maneuvers already, and we've been to Namibia also on this desert lake. You should tune into that episode later on as well, because that was some fast off-road driving with drifting and so on, because it's also majorly about the all-new all-wheel drive, the electric all-wheel drive they put in here. And well, it's another Quattro system because Quattro is just their brand name for their all-wheel drive systems. And the thing is that here you have no physical connection from front to rear axle, so both electric motors work on their own basically, but adjust the speed. You have a rear wheel bias, so that makes the car drive a little bit sportier then, and also you don't need like a differential lock or something, because you can also distribute the power between those individual wheels. And that also works against understeering, and when you also put the ESC off, then you can really do some nice drifting actions. Again, check out this action episode we've done in Namibia. That was really, really cool. Here today, some slower off-road riding, seen also, you know, some angle change here, for example, and just to get a feeling for that vehicle here. So it's also easy to control off-road. The steering is light, but still offers you a feeling of, you know, you actually always know what you're in, what to do. The air suspension, remember that when you put an air suspension higher, you lose comfort because you have less negative travel then. That's a very interesting aspect, but still, you feel that you're driving an off-road vehicle with an air suspension. Because all of the bumps here, they are evened out quite well still. However, it does not have a very, very soft off-road setup as well as suspension, because they primarily also want to tune it for the city and motorway driving, that you can drive a little bit sportier still. So that's the main focus for sure of that vehicle. And what we've also experienced already in Namibia, when you're driving here through the landscape, this is a designated track here, you're also silent for everyone that is outside. So that makes you, for example, when you think about using it as a safari vehicle or something, then you can approach also maybe, you know, animals in the park or something. You can approach it a little bit better, and you don't annoy them with loud engine sound or something like that. That's, I think, also a very, very interesting aspect for sure. So, you know, go a little bit faster. We're in this off-road mode once again, and the car just gives me a very good feeling. And I think this electric all-wheel drive aspect really could be something for the future, also for even for hard off-road driving, because you got instant torque when you need it, and you can really finely tune it where you want to have it. So you don't need an off-road gear reduction, for example. All those special off-road features are rather done because of the, you know, of the technological stuff that you had initially, you know, with internal combustion engine and different gears, transmission, and so on and so on. And here you actually don't need it. So with the electric one, you can just control it in a very different way. I think that's definitely a very interesting aspect. The overall ground clearance is about 17 centimeters. Again, you can lift it up a little bit higher then, but this car does not have the premium ground clearance, so it's not for hard off-road use and for some really like steep inclines and so on. You see here, even here, I have to go rather slow. I don't scratch the ground and stuff. Hill descent control, even in this short part, was already activated. The car is doing that by itself automatically. Quite a rocky surface, but still, you know, it's also pretty silent, you know. So usually when you're driving over, like also like with those older diesel cars or something, it's over like. But here, I think, especially when you're going to some nice nature roads or something, or also normal roads with good landscape, if you have the silent electric vehicle, you can enjoy it even more. Because, you know, when you're driving on the racetrack, I think that's maybe a part where you think, okay, the sound is really missing. But here, I think no one would say that sound or something would be missing in this case. Or what do you think? So, very interesting always to drive a little bit off-road here with the e-tron. And again, I really recommend you, if you want some more high-speed off-road driving, to tune in to our other episode there. I will also link it in the video description, then you can enjoy more of that. And now we want to drive rather calm and also maybe a little bit just straight to see what about that realistic range. So at the moment this car here is filled up with energy about 98%, it's said, and the predicted range is always calculated, you know, among the last driving situations and so on. And this here at the moment is 360 kilometers prediction, which would be not so much actually. Let's see how that one plays out, definitely. And also let's take a look at the energy consumption, because then we can also calculate. Oh, by the way, if you hear this like rubber sound, it's because the you know, the sole of my shoes meets this super fresh rubber pad of the pedals. It's obviously so fresh that it still gives a sound. Also very interesting. I mean, what can you find on details on those vehicles? Even when going straight, you always got a very connected feeling to the car. The car still feels light somehow, and of course also super silent. So at the moment, going here at about 60 kilometers an hour, and it's really super silent and super relaxing. So this already great sound installation is meeting the electric drive, the silent electric drive of this vehicle. That's a great match. So this works very well together. And since I've also recently driven the Audi Q8, I can really compare it. And this is indeed a better driving feeling, because it is a lot of fun to enjoy this silence. That's really pretty cool. So the most confusing thing again with the mirrors is you have to look more down. And I think the thing is with the mirrors, I mean, if you look at this mirror, if you look at that side mirror and then that side mirror, the normal ones, it somehow gives you an overall feeling, a three-dimensional feeling of your surrounding. But since those are here, flat screens, they don't deliver you that. So that's, I think, also another problem. And also when you control them, you know, while driving, that's way more distracting to control those while driving than you would do it with the electric mirror control right there, because then you also look a little bit more upright, more like here, and here you look here. That's again another problem. So I just have to, I can just mention that again. I think this is the biggest technology, one of the biggest technology fails I've recently seen in a vehicle. I mean, I'm really sorry for the engineers that took out to this technology, because there's a lot of know-how behind it, and they surely put a lot of thought in it, but it just clearly doesn't work. So if you order this vehicle, order it without this option, and I mean, have some good food for the for the money you saved there, because it's a couple of €1,000 extra in price. It's really not worth the effort. Just maybe to show off to your friends, hey, I got this new technology feature or something. It looks cool. It's a great wow effect, but effectively, while using it while driving, it's an absolute technology fail. I can just I'm always honest with you guys. So now going on the motorway and rather some straight. I mean, I've been doing some cruising driving here anyway, but we also want to keep it realistic, that we don't have just like 60 kilometers an hour and cruise control. So we also had some, stopping, and then with recuperation test and something should still be realistic. And after this playing around, we have a consumption of 24 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. So that's, in this case, it's really hard to put it out to 100 miles, but I know that would be like 24 kilowatt hours per 60 miles. Interesting is that is somewhat comparable to the one of Tesla Model S, or to the Tesla Model X, to other big electric vehicles which are at the same weight approximately. The weight, of course, is predominantly controlled by the battery they put in here. Whereas the smaller electric vehicles, that AJ and Michelle have recently been filming the Hyundai and Kia smaller models, and in this case they started with the Kia e-Niro. Sorry, it's the e-Niro, right? So since Robert De Niro took on testimonially being for this car, everyone says, oh, it's called Niro. So everyone calls it Niro now, and they are also calling it Niro. So let's call it Kia e-Niro. That one had a consumption of about 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So yes, smaller electric vehicles are more sustainable, because it's like with the combustion engine cars, they use less electricity because they also need to move less weight and so on. So we'll watch the consumption here, of course, for you. Like this situation now. I was looking at the mirror, at the camera again, and I thought, okay, so I did do the mirror view, right? So I can change. I didn't even look at the screen. You can say, okay, it's my fault, but it's something you're so used to while driving a car. It's really hard to get that out of your veins. It's in our blood that we look at the mirror. Yeah. So we control our speed here, because the fines here in Abu Dhabi are actually pretty high. So at the moment now at 120 kilometers an hour. So that's actually a good motorway speed, So that's like 70 miles an hour. It's again super silent. What a great ride as for that. You can really relax. I don't have to raise my voice in any way. Then the air suspension, which is set on a rather sporty note, is giving me still good feedback. It's not too soft, but also not too hard. It's definitely not one of those flying carpet ride air suspensions where it's really soft. I always say when I want an air suspension, I want it rather soft, because that's the reason I go for an air suspension. But here I think it's still a good compromise. It's the same with the Audi Q8. We've experienced really good to the ride and still a sporty experience whatsoever. Now at 140 kilometers an hour, which is allowed here. It's one of the very rare countries outside of Germany where you can drive more than 100 or maybe more than 120 on motorways here, so at 140. And still, super silent, the car is very well to control, it's super stable, and the precise steering feeling here also at the higher speeds. So even the smallest commands, see here, have an effect on what's happening on the road. So it is still light to control, but super precise, and it's just good to know that something is happening and it doesn't have a real dead zone or something. And now also something very interesting is happening. As soon as I went up now, just those 20 kilometers, consumption went up too. And that's of course happening with ICE cars anyway, now at 28 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So of course there's more wind resistance now, and the car basically has to fight against this. The AC is running, but it's not too hot outside here yet. Outside 23.5 degrees Celsius, so that's something in the like beginning of the 80s Fahrenheit region, I think that should be. So let's say we drive like this now all the time. Let's see what the vehicle says. It says 315 kilometers of range left. I mean, we've driven a little bit now. Let's reduce the speed again to 120 and see how that one plays out then. That should drop the consumption once more. So now at 27.4, so a little bit definitely, and the overall is again, it's 27 overall at the moment for the trip so far. And if we then calculate it, if it's a 95 kilowatt hour battery and it's about 27 kilowatt hour consumption on 100 kilometers, that's of course not 400, because I mean, an easy calculation would be like say 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers and 100 kilowatt hours battery, like with the Tesla, that's 400 kilometers of range. And with the Teslas, we indeed had like 400, sometimes like 420, 430, something like that. Audi claimed at one point that they can even do better than Tesla, and obviously they can't. So yeah, I think 400 kilometers is maybe not the most realistic range figure, but if you calculate now, it would be small, something like 360 kilometers, so something less than 200 miles, so maybe like 180, 190 miles or something like that. This one is then rather a realistic figure. We drive on this car a little bit longer and see how that plays out, and also give you a report later on. But I think, you always have to be realistic. The same with the normal fuel figures. Overall, the range is still enough that you can do the most things you want to do with this car. That's, I think, still fine. And it's not that you have this range anxiety all the time. The big advantage, again, if you compare it to a Tesla here with the Audi e-tron, is it's way more silent, especially at higher speeds. You hear that already now. Of course, the case is here with the electric vehicles. When you drive faster, you only have wind noise. You have nothing from the engine. And that, on a subjective note, could actually increase the possible wind noise you are hearing. So you have to deduct that effect, basically. But still, if you then compare the Audi to the Tesla, the Audi is way more silent here at the higher speeds. They just have more experience in noise insulation and all the engineering stuff. That's, by the way, also one thing where the virtual mirrors are good for. So there's less wind noise from this area then. That's the only good thing I can see with this technology. And I'm not finished with blaming them, because now when the sun is coming from the side, it's like, take your laptop outside at 12 o'clock and at a sunny day. What can you see at your laptop screen? It's exactly what you can see here now at this screen right there. So you can see something, but it's not good to see, not at all. Yeah. So very interesting driving impressions here with the Audi e-tron. Also here on just going straight. It's a great car to go straight. Super comfortable from seats, super silent. Plus enjoying the silent electric ride. That's really, really amazing. Consumption, now went up over to 29 kilowatt hours or more kilometers. So yes, still the case when you drive a little bit faster, consumption goes up even more. So the promised range figures are not really there right yet. So I think we got some realistic stuff from you now, more realistic than the official figures, of course. And we'll keep you updated how it went on the further drive. Hope you also enjoyed this extensive information right here. So now to our conclusion for today. Glad you joined us here for this full review. And after I finish the conclusion, please also join the episode from Namibia where we really rocked it out with the e-tron on the sand surface. Well, exterior-wise, I think it's very well done. It's an elegant design, and I mean, it's basically an electric Q8, so to say, if you just look from the exterior. On the interior, got a great build quality and also a very elegant and clean design for sure. You can argue about if you need a central controller or if it's enough with the touchscreen while driving. You know, while driving, it's quite often better not to use the touchscreen, so that's surely an argument. But overall, the software is quite intuitive to use. However, one big flaw for a supposed to be sustainable vehicle, of course, that they still set all the sails on animal skin. But with their recent concept car, Audi has shown that they want to change that now bit by bit at least. But they should have already done that here with this vehicle. From the room you have inside, it's also quite okay. In the rear trunk, well, it's not too high, but other than that, you can very well use this car, yes. You feel that it's not initially an all-electric platform. It's still this base from the MLB, which they're using for the A6, A7, A8, Q8, Q7 and so on. So that's a different, for example, to Tesla. Tesla builds the car from scratch as an electric vehicle. Here you have some points where you see they did not do that. That will follow later, a little bit later in the Volkswagen Corporation, first for the smaller cars, then for the bigger cars. But Audi wanted to put this car on the market now. You know, they are already quite late. The biggest fail of this car are those virtual mirrors. I think they're really dangerous. Please do not pick them if you buy this vehicle, and also give the manufacturer a feedback. I have tested it now thoroughly, and yes, if you get used to it, you will handle them a little bit better, that's for sure. But still, you always have to look a little bit further down, and that distracts you. It takes more time to look up again, and especially when it's sunny. It's like working on a laptop when it's sunny. It just doesn't work for me, and I think it will also not work for you. And the second flaw is the range we were expecting. Figures as for 250 miles or 400 kilometers. Audi even promised more. But what we realistically found, without super hammering it, is more 300 something plus kilometers or 180, 190 miles. And that's still enough for most situations. But if you think about that, realistic Tesla figures with a big battery is rather 400, 450 kilometers and definitely more than 200 miles. And that also, like from Hyundai and Kia, they're smaller cars, they are also reaching those ranges now. So the range is indeed a little bit disappointing. The consumption was a little bit too high, between 26 and even 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and that's just too much. But now to the biggest strength of this vehicle. It drives so incredibly well. Due to this electric all-wheel drive and the basically free distribution, it feels like a smaller car. It almost handles like a compact hatch or so. We also experienced that in our prototype ride in Namibia. This is so agile with the AWD. It's so silent on the one hand, due to the great insulation and so on, so you can drive also really fast. That's, by the way, also they have something ahead in Tesla, the production quality and also the noise insulation. So at higher speeds, it's still very, very silent. It's a great ride. The seats from the form are also so comfortable, and together with all of that, you have a super comfortable ride, but at the same time, it's very sporty, although you have an air suspension, which is again, a balance between sportiness and comfort. So I cannot stress too much how well it is to ride this car. So that's actually the biggest strength. And from driving, I think it's at the moment the best electric vehicle. But concept-wise, we've explained to you some of those factors. They're surely lacking some things yet. And overall, I think definitely one of the very interesting cars here at the moment of the market. I think we could very well show you the pros and cons, and I hope you enjoyed this Autogefühl episode with us. Welcome to our full review of the Mercedes EQC. This all-electric crossover or SUV, what is it? By Mercedes, we will find out with you together. Exterior, interior, and today the driving experience. I can tell you, there's a lot to tell you about this vehicle. Join us now in Full HD, full screen, and full length. Let's go. In the front you can see there is this black panel design, so it does somewhat look different, looks somewhat electric, especially if you pick this base electric trim, so to say, and they use those blue contrast for their electric EQ brand. I will soon also show you an AMG line. That then looks a little bit more normal, like for example a GLC would look alike. And indeed, the GLC and this one here, the EQC, they're both built in Germany, in Bremen, and they share thus the same platform. So you could say it's somewhat an electrified GLC, but of course they did a lot of changes, also put the batteries in a lower ground. We'll of course tell you more about that during this review. First of all, how do you like this front appearance? And the headlamps, they start directly with the LED high beam light, a special one, the multi-beam, how Mercedes calls it. So there's a lot of standard equipment already with this car. And the pricing is also very interesting. I'll also tell you more about that later. The length is at 4.76 meters, 15'6" or 187 inches. And that's a little bit longer than the Mercedes GLC, the combustion engine brother. And also, if you think about the electric competitors, a little bit longer than the Jaguar I-Pace, but a little bit shorter than the Audi e-tron and also a little bit shorter than the Tesla Model X. Those would be the electric competitors. Wheels start from 19 and up to 21 inch. Those ones are the mid-size, the 20 inch, and look quite interesting. There are different stylings available. There's also this very special electric styling available you will soon see with the silver car, and that is to me a little bit more too much electric look. I think to me, it looks cool when it's, has some special accentuations, but then also looks a little bit more normal-ish. The EQC logo is right there, also in this signature blue color. Then here we have those chrome-style frames around the windows, and indeed, you see it's not very high. It does not have major ground clearance. It sits a little bit lower than the GLC. And they also use the space in the lower ground to put the batteries right there. 650 kilograms is the weight just of the battery, to a total weight of 2.4 tons, so it's a very heavy car. But again, with electric vehicles, it's not so bad because you can recuperate, you can gain back the energy when rolling. So we'll see out how that one plays out later. As for the drivetrain, there's an electric motor in the front and in the rear, so on both axles. And interesting that the front is doing the major work and the rear is mainly accessed when you really hammer the throttle. With the Audi e-tron, by the way, it's exactly the other way around. Interesting. Also tell you more about that in the driving part. First of all, well, it is somewhat GLC-ish from the side profile, but again, a little bit lower, somewhat between crossover and SUV. And I'm really eager to find out how that one plays out when driving the vehicle. Here in the rear, it's all defined by this light strip that goes all around right there. I think it's a beautiful LED signature. The battery here is 80 kilowatt hours. I'll tell you already right now. Some of the figures I'll also repeat throughout the review because there are a lot of figures to tell you, of course. And in the lower part, there are, some bright contrast right there. But overall, a very clean and sleek design. And by the way, the trunk we open by flipping this Mercedes logo here. That's very interesting. And in the interior part, we'll also see how much space there is actually left. So what about towing? You can see here, this is an electric equipment, so to say. Comes out right there, and it's 1.8 tons is allowed. That's almost 4,000 pounds, and the Tesla can tow a little bit more, but here you also have the possibilities. So the list of electric vehicles that can tow things are actually limited. The e-tron can also do it. Here now the I want to say GLC electric, the EQC, and of course also the Teslas. And again, with this function, it's also a pretty clean one. And now we fled inside to get some cover from the rain outside. And here we can present you even more colors. That's very interesting. And here in silver, this is so to say the official launch color. This one also the special edition 1886, the first patent by Mercedes or by Daimler. And the blue contrast is, very well done in this case. Then here, that's also why they use this color here as the primary communication color. But clearly, this car that stands here right now has more the official electric look. It will be different with the AMG line I will soon present to you. And I want to hear your comments. Would you rather like the car to be electric from the design, or do you rather want it normal, like a sporty AMG style? Which one would you prefer? And one more look from the rear side perspective here for the silver car, where this light strip right there has also a more contrasting look. I think very impressive. However, I also would like to see a Thomas Blue on this car. Wouldn't you as well? Well, and a lot of variation in the weather also means a lot of picture variety for you. Now again, in a little bit better weather, again the AMG line with the white car with those 21-inch wheels. Pretty amazing. But again, for comfort reasons, I would rather than go for 19 or 20-inch wheels. Here you can see in the AMG line you have those two horizontal fins, and that makes the look more normal car-ish alike. The same also accounts here for this grey Magno car, again also AMG line, and then you can see it also the same styling elements like the side steps at the side. And again in the close-up comparison here with those multiple horizontal for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can count very well, can't I? So 7 horizontal fins right there in this normal electric look. So which one do you prefer? And meanwhile, I also found out what they really thought about when naming it 400. Here again in the rear perspective, a daylight with this white car. Very interesting. By the way, let me show you when I open the car and close the car, turning indicators right there. They can also see them. Well, EQC 400, why 400? Well, 408 horsepower, you might think, oh, is it the horsepower figure? But that's actually not the case. And then you think about, the acceleration figure is close to a GLC 43. But then again, if you think, for example, for acceleration, not from 0 to 100, but from 100 to 200 now theoretically, like the higher acceleration figures, then they said this one here, power-wise, rather comes close to what would be like a C400 or a E400. So they searched for a combination of figures where you can somehow relate to how strong is a diesel or petrol engine with a certain naming, like an E-Class 400 or a C-Class 400. And then how can that relate to an electric vehicle? And that's how they then came up with the 400. And that might then speak again for later models that they are also named, in an according way, maybe like a performance electric vehicle, which is then called 500. Or will they also call it 63 or 43? We'll see about that. This is the car key, it's slim and light. We also know it from an E-Class, or for example, it's pretty good. You can also use your smartphone with NFC to open and close the car. That would also be an option. Other than that, door closing sound. Pretty solid. And then inside of the doors with a nice leatherette cover. This is available in different colors, by the way. Also the inserts here, you get a dark open cell matte wood that feels very good, natural, and as there's also a bright version I would recommend. There's also carbon fiber look available and aluminum, and also a so-called matrix style, like with the dot structure. So those are all the ones that are available. Leatherette cover here, also very soft for the armrest. Good build quality for the window levers. And this is a very new design element exclusive to the EQC. It's a three-dimensional one. You can really touch it also. And this, yeah, like an aluminum mesh or something, really looks very interesting. And then this interior, of course, you see somewhat GLC facelift too, but then again, it has special elements unique here. For example, those rose gold elements, pretty trendy, for example, and also different colors for the dashboard here available. This is all soft touch. The steering wheel, we know that one here with the Distronic control on the left side. I'll soon tell you more about that. And then those seats. There are a lot of different seats available. Those ones here are called Sunnyvale, and then you get either a beige, this bright fabric on the inside, or a blue one, and on the outside you have some Artico leatherette. And well, Mercedes really spent a lot of time and effort in offering a lot of different seating choices. Therefore, I'll take a seat right here, because now I'll just tell you all about it. It might depend from market to market, but let me tell you what is all available from the works. It starts with a base seat that looks a little bit less sporty than this one. It's a little bit more open. And the base seat is either available with black fabric or with full Artico. So this material here, the very high-grade leatherette, a full Artico seat in black or beige. That would be for the base seat. Then this one here is the sport seat. And this one is available like this here with the Sunnyvale fabric. This is a very soft fabric. This top part can be drawn, low part can be drawn back here, by the way. So it really feels very interesting. It's soft and high class, and then also available in blue. Or this sport seat in the AMG line, also then available with microfiber. I will soon show you that. Microfiber inside, leatherette outside. So Mercedes really offers a lot of different non-animal based choices. And with that offering, they are actually the number 2 just behind Tesla. Well, I mean, Tesla leads it in a way that they do not use animal source on the seats overall anymore, but Mercedes offers a little bit more variation. So that's very interesting. Of course, there are still some animal parts here. You can also optionally get animal skin leather seats, full cover, and also the steering wheel comes from works with it. But at Mercedes dealers, you can also ask for the MBUX. Cancel. We'll soon talk to you later. You can also get a leatherette replacement when you ask it at the Mercedes dealer. No, I'm a little bit confused by the system. That's always when you talk about this certain brand here, then the infotainment system gets active. We'll soon test the voice activation for you. And this is this so-called 1886 special edition for you from the interior here with a dark blue or navy tone leatherette at the inside of the doors. Also very beautifully done. And those seats are also somewhat special in the color combination, because like when you would have the AMG line, you have microfiber on the inside and then a blue Artico on the outside. That's also really cool. And then also this 1886 stitching right there. That would be something for me, really, you know. Maybe not 1886, rather 1986 to my birth year. That would fit even more. And then you can see also some special colors are used on the dashboard. So overall, really a nice special edition to go for. It will not be available all the time, I guess. Now for the initial start of the vehicle, yes. But later on, as I told you earlier, you'll still have a lot of different choices. And this is the AMG line on the interior, about €1,000 extra. Soft plush materials on the top of the door, and the Artico leatherette here at the inside, also all in black. And then special with those seats, this is the standard for the AMG line, Dynamica microfiber on the inside, sporty setup, and leatherette Artico on the outside. also a great seating choice if you want a little sportier trim. The AMG line you can see here also comes with those optional sport seats. They are then standard for this AMG line package, and considering for an AMG line, the extra price is not as high as usual. So also here the pricing is actually quite fair considering Mercedes prices in general. And the rest you can see rather a darker setup, but still again with those rosé gold accentuations. And that's how the rear bench looks like. The same styling as in the front. Again, a very beautiful design work and also quite practical for your everyday driving life and also for the temperature you have on the seats. And my seating position here on the driver's seat, headroom wise, with one with 86 or 6 with 1, still some left, even though there's the panoramic roof here. It's not too high, of course, but still okay. Seat controls at the inside of the doors, as you know from Mercedes. And again, you know, this lower part can be also put back in again, if you like, depending on the length of your legs. It's a comfortable seating position. I have no possibility to test the base seats here today. I can just tell you that those optional, little bit sportier seats, they're not too sporty, so they offer you decent comfort. We've also been driving a couple of hours now, and I can, just say positive things about the seats also long-term perspective. Again, also for tall person, it's quite nice, and the cockpit is not too closed around you. It's somewhat open. The middle console is not too high. So again, feeling quite comfortable here. This is the interior overview, and somewhat, of course, you resemble the Mercedes concept here from those new cars that you have those freestanding displays. This is also standard here for the EQC. That's good. No, like this is optional, and also comes directly with the MBUX, the system, which has also a new voice input. On the right thumb here, you can control the right screen, but also with touch, but also then with this lower touchpad, that's also possible for redundant controls, you can call those. On the left side here, usually you use your left thumb to control the digital instruments right there. You can also change something from the views. So, steering wheel again can be also controlled height and also in reach, like this. An interesting also styling element that those horizontal fins in a yard style go all around the vehicle in the front. And again, a very new soft touch material. It has a very interesting surface right there, and also different colors available, and they made this additional design element again with those horizontal fins really interesting styling, some more daring, but without going over the top. I think that's a nice solution they found right there. By the way, this setup here, 10.25 inch, 2 times left and right, just to mention the inch figure. The climate control is still separate somewhat right here. Also have the additional heating from the battery here if it really gets too cold. Preconditioning also available. In the lower part you have USB-C charging next to inductive charging pad, adaptive cup holders, then driving mode selector. This is a button here for all the electric functions. If we go up again to the screen, you can see then when you just hit this button, you can search for the next charging stations or set different functions right there. That's also showing you when I activate the separated heating, that it will also show it's activated when the engine is running. Well, when the motors are running. So always funny to really have the right definition for that. Well, but then let me just finish the lower part here of the middle console. You also have a separate camera button. This touchpad here, you can also write something in there, but usually you will now just use the voice input for the address. And then for all your clutter, you have this middle armrest. Let me just open it once more with a nice soft leatherette cover. And then you have 2 more USB supplies. And more details here to the infotainment system. Here you can see the energy flow. At the moment, just the front axle driving the car, that is, will be done predominantly. And when you hit the brakes, then something is recuperated. Very interesting. Well, and then there's also a rear view camera that you have this one up close. We really saw how the logo was still flipping. They also have a very good resolution, and it also adapts here right there. And we also hear something like a reverse beeping sound from the very rear there. That's also pretty funny. Well, and then the rest of the infotainment system, what I also want to show you is the GPS, because that works very well and also is quite responsive. Connecting the smartphone will also be possible, of course. This EQ here, by the way, is like when you press the separate button on the lower middle console. Comfort, this is here, this so-called energizing comfort control, that the seats are adjusted a little bit while driving from the normal controls to create less fatigue. Then here with apps, you will be able to have the smartphone connection either with Android Auto or with Apple CarPlay with your cable. They do not offer the wireless connection yet. So I think here everything is quite easy to control. Bluetooth connection is, of course, also still available. And what about this voice control? Hey Mercedes,
How may I help you?
find me a hotel in Oslo. So let's see.
Please select an entry.
Ah, there we have some hotels in Oslo. This is not an advertisement, by the way. I wish those hotels would pay us, but they don't. So this is one of the things. Cancel. You can always go back.
Could you repeat your input, please?
And you can also use button at the steering wheel to go for this voice command. It's always hard to explain it then, because then the system reacts to what you're saying once more. So let's just cancel it again. Cancel, cancel, cancel. And for example, you can also set the temperature with the voice control. That would be also possible. And, just ask some questions. It is one of the best systems here on the market, but you always need to have a good web connection. Then all the extensive features are working. Those digital instruments are very clear to read, and you also have a lot of different options. You can also put the GPS right in there if the road would be mapped at the moment. So that's possible. Or the telephone information, you can also change what you want to see on the head-up display, and also go different designs. This is a so-called progressive design, but you also go like this, classic and sport. Oh, did you notice, in comparison to other Mercedes cars, the normal combustion engine cars, this one here is loading definitely faster than before. So probably they worked here on the loading times for the different design. Nice. As I said earlier, a lot of things in this car are actually standard equipment, or they are not that cost intensive. The head-up display is one of those options. This one indeed just optional, but it's a good option. Current speed, allowed speed, and for example also the GPS information. You just have it in line of sight. So probably this would be one I would go for next to the blind spot monitor as well too. And to the glass roof here, the shade for that is just manual, but why not? Does the job. And then you can open it also, but it's not too clever at the moment because the whole glass roof is wet, so probably would also get even wetter here on the inside here now. By the way, I'm really astonished by the whole build quality here, especially those new materials right here. And by the way, this one here, not sure if I said it at one point, this is not leatherette. This is also some kind of new fabric at the top part. The lower part then is leatherette, the top part here all the way, and this one here is some special fabric, and they really use great materials for that. The only thing I found pretty weird is this normal back mirror, and there are some frameless, nice looking back mirrors available. Meanwhile, I wonder why they just haven't put a fancy one in here. This one is, one of the cheapest pieces in this very vehicle. Most of the other parts are really very well done. And the rear compartment here now of this vehicle, the same styling, it really fits the black exterior very well when you have the beige interior right here. Again with the Burmester sound system. By the way, it's not as good with the sound here in the C models and with the E models, have to notice that, but still a nice sound. Then also how it looks like in the rear with those Sunnyvale seats. By the way, they also consist majorly of recycled materials. Shouldn't forget to mention that. That's also a good step. And the question is, does it not only look good, but does it still offer some decent room here in the rear? I have the seat as I would be driving, and you have those gaps at the back of the seat, so it still leaves some knee room here. It's not like super ample of space, but you can easily sit here also as a tall adult. Headroom wise, that's also still okay for me. So 4 tall adults can be housed right here. If you compare to an Audi e-tron, that one is a little bit bigger car, therefore you also have a little bit more space. but they drive a little bit different also, so we'll tell you more about it when we drive the car soon. And of course, the question is always how far you want to go on the dimensions from the exterior, depending on the country you live in. But overall, it's also a quite comfortable feeling here in the rear. Again, there are surely cars with a little bit more legroom. Mercedes, in all of their mid-size cars, and also the upper mid-size vehicles, you know, they don't offer the very best package, but still has a very comfortable seating area overall. With those seats here in general, there are no other adjustments. Isofix at the outside part. Then we have middle armrest, some space, and also some cup holders right there. And well, then there comes the disadvantage that they don't have an own platform, but still use the GLC platform. This is good for cost saving and, you know, also speaks for that they can really produce this car also at a somewhat comparable price. But then you still have this middle tunnel right there. They put also some parts underneath it to use the space. But then again, for an all-electric vehicle on an own platform, this wouldn't be necessary. 2 more USB-C supply here in the rear, next to another 12-volt power supply. You also have a separate heating control right there for the rear seats. Overall, I think the seating comfort is really good, quite cozy. I think in the Audi e-tron you have a little bit more room. It's also a bigger car, but then again you can, you know, very well live with here also for longer journeys. Now what about the trunk? Again, we flip the Mercedes logo right there. And here we go. Of course, you lose a little bit in height. It's 500 liters here. This is a little bit wobbly. There's no rail at the side. 550 liters it would be for the GLC, by the way. So, yeah, a little bit less, but still somewhat okay. Some more space below here. Well, and then, what about the measurements? In length, it's about 1 meter in length. That's totally fine. And even more than 1 meter in width. That's actually pretty good. And then we can flip the seats right there. That also works very well. So overall, very well usable trunk and easy to access. And here, just flip it out. That's a little bit more than 1 meter 80. So, and if you want to know the height right there, so just here, lowest point is about 35 centimeters and the highest point right here is about, yeah, it's more than 60 centimeters and right there is 40 centimeters. And, you know, when you put a backpack upright in here, it comes somewhat close. What about a cabin trolley? Let's see it right here. So that still works. And that's, of course, good that this still works height-wise. And if we put it normally down like this, then you can also get another impression of how that really plays out. Overall, I think we can live with that. Don't you? Well, since we're used to talk about engines when we open the front hood, we also do it here, even though it, you know, for an electric vehicle, it doesn't really matter. But they have some of the design here and they put a lot of components down there, but you cannot open this one here, so it is not a frunk. That's a big difference to other cars, so you cannot use this front compartment. That's too bad. But there's a nice storage for the cable in the rear. I'll show you that later. The horsepower figure is, by the way, 408, so 408 horsepower, and acceleration figure to 100 kilometers or 62 miles now is 5.1 seconds. Wait a minute, a GLC 43 is 4.9 seconds, so it really comes close to it. And the pricing is very interesting. In Germany, the price is at 70,000 euros or 71,000 euros. And if you then deduct the governmental benefits and so on, you would almost get the price of a GLC 43. But the thing is that this one here comes with a lot of standard equipment. So usually with Mercedes, you hardly get anything, and then you have extra price, extra price, extra price, extra price. And this car here already comes with a really, you will soon see it on the interior, with a lot of equipment, which is standard equipment then. And I think, you know, it's still a very expensive vehicle. But considering other Mercedes for, you know, in this region, this one then is, at Mercedes, a quite good deal price-wise. Well, and what about charging this 80 kilowatt hour battery pack? Well, here in Norway, where we're filming here today, it's pretty easy because, for example, even just here, you know, in those public garages here at the airport, there are so many charging stations. It's really incredible if you compare it to somewhere else. And here at the moment we have the AC charger, so of course you can also just use a normal household plug. But if you use a wall box or something, at the moment 7.4 kilowatt is the maximum AC charge. I just hope, and I think we can somewhat expect that they will at some point also introduce a little stronger AC charger, because 7.4 kilowatt is really not that strong. The competitors offer us a little bit stronger figures right there. But I think, you know, they have to do it a little bit better as for this respect. DC charging, AC-DC, yo. So DC charging will be faster than, of course, 110 kilowatt is the maximum right there, and either with CCS or CHAdeMO, depending on where or on which market you are buying the vehicle. And here in the display you can also see the charging state at the moment at 87%, and in the lower left corner then also the current speed. Charging has stopped at the moment, so we're just about to take off here right again, therefore it says 0.0 kilowatt. Well, and what about this cable? This one is an original parts cable, so to say. Of course not produced by Mercedes themselves, but by Mennekes, right there, that's the company. And this one is a clever idea because it is somewhat compact. You don't have such a long cable, you know, it just like retracts itself a little bit, but it's still somewhat flexible. So that's a cool idea. And then you can put it in this bag here, and this bag exactly fits right here. It is a little bit of a, you know, Tetris game then, but when it's stored, then it's relatively clean, especially since this car does not have a frunk, no front trunk. People say electric vehicles have a lot of power. Is that true? Let's go. Plop, and that's already 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles. And probably heard also some bottles at the inside of the doors were flying all over the place. Wow. That was really powerful, and indeed that comes to my theory that this one here can also be somewhat a replacement for a GLC 43 AMG, because, you know, just about, we have to check the time code here in the video, but the official one is like 5.1 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour, and I think we could easily reach that. Pretty impressive. Also very interesting how they do that with the distribution between the axles, because usually Mercedes have, with their compact vehicles, the front-wheel drive platform, and then all-wheel drive, front plus rear. But the bigger ones usually have rear-wheel drive and then rear plus front on demand. That would be this size here. But for the electric vehicle, the front motor does, like, let's say, most of the time, all the power work, and then the rear motor right there, that one is only accessed when you really, punch it, like we just did it right there. So this one has a little bit more front wheel bias because they say it's more efficient than the whole operating system. There's no mechanical link between those two motors. It's very interesting. The optional augmented reality function will also kick in. You can see it here in the GPS screen. Very interesting. There's the camera view, and then we can see, for example, what the name of the streets and so on. And when I'm now coming to the end of this roundabout, usually there should also have been like a sign of where I should be going, but it wasn't in this case. It's maybe not available for all roads and so on. This is also the reason why I went the wrong way now. But that's always a good experience. You can now put in the reverse gear. A very good resolution here also from the rear camera, top drone view from above. And this is so cool, when you're just turning with this vehicle, it's all silent. That's what I love with electric vehicles, especially in these low speed regions. It's all good. By the way, up to a speed of 30 kilometers an hour, this car here actually gives you some beeping sound, or actually like like a spaceship sound from the exterior, because that was actually demanded for safety. It's also just a regulation. And above 30 kilometers an hour, an electric vehicle is as loud as a normal petrol car anyway, because then the tire noise is more significant than the noise from the engine. That counts from everything on the exterior. Interior-wise, however, we have the experience that an electric vehicle is even more silent, also at mid-speed regions, if you compare it. Like now, we're driving 60 kilometers an hour. Then to me, the electric vehicles are still more silent. And then if you drive even faster, then the wind noises are the crucial ones that you hear or don't hear. Very interesting. The question is, if it doesn't have a real bias, does it still feel Mercedes-alike, also from the all-wheel drive? Well, first of all, it is a very performant car, so you always have a very good acceleration, and it's also, well, it's not nice for us to film, but it's really cool to test this car also here in the rain, because that also gives us some perspective on the grip we have. And as we didn't need a launch control for this car here. You've seen I really hammered the throttle all the way in sports mode, and there was no loss of grip whatsoever, and such a strong acceleration, although the road was wet. That really speaks for this all-wheel drive. We had the same experience with the Audi e-tron, where we could test it in this Namibian desert, that those electric all-wheel drive systems are actually, in a way better than the classic all-wheel drive, because you can so fine-tune of where the torque is going to, and that guarantees an optimum traction. That's really interesting. And I have to say, this car really drives awesome. I like driving the GLC, yes, already. This one here is way heavier than the GLC, but the funny thing is that it feels more agile. The center of gravity is lower because the heavy battery pack, 650 kilograms, is really, put in the bottom of the vehicle. That makes it sports car-like from the driving feeling. So although it's really heavy, it drives sportier than it should be from the figures. That's really interesting, and it's a lot of fun here in the corners. When you accelerate out, you feel that the first car is pulling in the front a little bit, then the push from the rear also comes the more you hit the throttle. So that's very interesting. Driving mode here in the sport mode, by the way, it's still comfortable, and the steering is actually quite natural as for the feeling. That's cool. Driving mode here, for example, also in comfort. Then the suspension is a little bit softer, and also the throttle input is a little bit different. This one here equipped with an adaptive suspension. That's standard equipment. The air suspension is not available. I suppose that's because you don't have room for that as you would have in the normal GLC. I'll try to clear that up also for you too. But the suspension does a good job, so I'm not really missing the air suspension here. That's really cool. Not too much of a difference between the sport and the comfort mode, I have to say. This is of course counting more for those combustion engines where the shifting characteristics are changed. Then it actually plays a bigger role. Again, really cool as for the handling of the whole vehicle. I have to say, it's more fun to drive this one than the GLC, and if you really think about switching from a GLC 43, if you compare it like equipment-wise and so on and power-wise, you won't have less fun, you will have more fun. It's all about the charging infrastructure. I can just tell again, if you're not like someone who drives 40,000 kilometers a year and every day you have to drive long journeys, if you have someone like a normal driving profile or an average driving profile, and you have the infrastructure, then you can easily also go for this electric version. The assistance systems work the same way, also like with the Mercedes ICEs. So at the moment, by the way, great look through this head-up display. I'm also can tell you about that in the interior part. We did it earlier. Also see the speed right here in the digital instruments, all standard. Blind spot monitor would be this small triangle. No one will overtake me here. And again, the AC is working pretty well. It also has some new functions that, for example, when there's a traffic jam appearing and you're driving really fast, it ultimately reduces the speed to to at least 100 kilometers. So yeah, that can happen in Germany, especially. You drive like 150 or something, and then it's reducing the speed to 100. And you also say for traffic jam, they get the information from the GPS and so on. Pretty interesting as for this aspect. It's actually also quite silent as for the wind insulation. So it's somewhat windy and rainy outside, but still I don't have to raise my voice that much. Oh, the ACC, by the way, was reducing the speed automatically in front of this roundabout. That's also one of the functions where they connect it actually to the GPS. I'm also feeling quite good on those seats. You feel also somewhat a little bit sportier than in the GLC because you sit a little bit lower. The car does not have any significant ground clearance, and it's more... Is it an SUV feeling? That's a good question. So I think it's a little bit more than the crossover feeling. I would say it's between crossover and SUV from this high driving feeling. But it is somewhat a feeling that you would say it's more comfortable than you would have in a sedan or estate. Not as high as you would sit in a GLC, but still, I think overall a very good compromise. I like that. So, I mean, we had some significant acceleration in here now, and that's why consumption is at 32 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers. That, of course, really high, but would be the same with petrol if we would have done a launch control. The real interesting thing is now, if I reset it and just put 100 kilometers or 60 miles on the ACC, what's the consumption then? It was really interesting. It runs down from 100 and now goes down. I'm not sure if that calculation is... I'm not sure if you could pick it up on a small camera. That's really interesting. So we can soon give you a figure to that. Now again, by the way, not doing anything with the pedal. The ACC is reducing the speed in front of the roundabout. It does that when you have the highest spec of that. Not doing anything, just controlling the steering wheel so far. Marvelous, right? That was really, really well done. Really amazing. Pretty cool. So this again, the highest spec of the assistance system of the ACC, that's Distronic. It's definitely a cool function. So about the total range, I mean, the one way would be to drive the car all empty, and the other way is to look at the average consumption and then calculate it up. And the latter one is actually, makes more sense. You rather do that also with the normal petrol or diesel cars. And here now, finally reached a value when we just have the cruise control and about 80 or 100 kilometers set. Then you can actually reach a consumption of about, let's see, it says at the moment, we're going towards 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That's of course then the ultra low figure, but the more we drive, the more average we get then. So we'll take a look at that. 20, if you have some acceleration in there, is surely a realistic figure, and if we think about 20 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers, then it would indeed be some 400 kilometers in range, or that's about 250 miles in range as a realistic figure. And I'm pretty sure we'll also reach soon about 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers here. And that's somewhat okay. The question is always, you can always use more range, but more realistic is that you quite often charge the car when you have the fitting infrastructure, and then it does not play such a big role if it's like 50 kilometers more or less, if you have at least something like 400 kilometers. I think 400 kilometers, 250 miles, you need to have that. Everything below that, then you might get in a lot of situations where you have problems, even if you have a rather average driving profile. By the way, also this styling somehow works while driving, the special styling here at the inside of the doors. You have the feeling that you're driving something different, something special. That works here with the Mercedes EQC, and it brings a little bit more joy. It's unique in the styling. It's an electric vehicle, an electric Mercedes. It has this really, really powerful acceleration, a great handling too, it feels smaller than and more agile than it actually is, or as the weight would promise. So far, that's definitely very interesting. By the way, the ACC also got it to the speed that is allowed here at the moment. Now, there's the blind spot monitor, got this red triangle right there. So it was good that someone was overtaking us actually right here. The consumption will also depend on the temperature on the outside. So at the moment, it's not such a good condition here for the battery. 8.5 degrees Celsius on the outside. And when you then mix it with some acceleration, the consumption of course goes up. But at the final conclusion, we'll keep you updated then with our final consumption for today. We drive the car even longer. Now of course going uphill, and then consumption goes up again. But again, we'll keep you up with the final average quite soon. So far, I really feel safe. By the way, we drove the same way here with the Ampera E. And that was of course a totally different car, but again, nice to be back around the Oslo region because the electric infrastructure here is really very cool. So, first ride with the Mercedes EQC, very promising, and yeah, just say it is a very, very cool ride. And here you can see the augmented reality function of the GPS. This is an option. Here then the camera front view is being shown and then directly where exactly you need to turn. And our experience is it worked very well in the US, for example, with different other vehicles. Here it also works very well in the city. If you are somewhere in the outskirts, depending on the map information, sometimes it cannot work, but especially in city situations, it's very reliable. And it's very important here for electric vehicles to talk about the recuperation to gain back the energy. And there's this auto mode. So the car decides itself, also according to, GPS data, for example, and what's coming ahead. It's very interesting. Usually you can leave it like this. So at the moment here, for example, we're going downhill, but the car is then sometimes maybe not decelerating enough. And then I can set the left shifting pedal, put it to D minus minus, and you can see I now have to accelerate again to even it out. This is in the very hard recuperation, so D minus minus. So I can put the right shifting pedal to go to D minus. So right shifting pedal is less recuperation, left is more. So here D minus minus, when I lift it forward, whoa, really goes like you would, be really braking. D minus still noticeable. Then the normal D mode, this is then a little bit. You can also see those percentage of charge and power on the right side. And then D plus or D plus is the last one, and this one is rolling basically. And we were also, a couple of minutes ago, we were rolling down a tunnel. And that was really very interesting because the car was rolling and rolling and rolling, even if it wasn't, such a steep descent. It was very interesting, pretty cool. So I'm just turning back here now, take the same route. So it's really interesting to play around it a little bit with the recuperation. I would probably set it to the really, really strong recuperation when you're going down for a very long time. Other than that, if you hold the left pedal, let's see if it also works with holding the right pedal again. Yeah, holding left or right pedal goes back to the auto mode again, and then the recuperation again is decided by the car itself. And what you can also do is just use normal brakes, and then first the recuperation is being used, and when you really hammer the brakes, then of course the normal brakes are also being applied. So a lot of choices you have. They don't go the way with the auto mode that they have always a harsh recuperation always on the auto mode. That's just done if you want that. So if you prefer a one pedal drive feeling, then you would go for those, left shifting pedal and put like Tesla, for example, sets it primarily. The German manufacturers, Audi also did that. they rather want to have like a mix, you know, and depending a little bit more on the situation. So I would not call it a one-pedal drive feeling car in the auto mode. That's just when you put it to D minus minus. Other than that, it's more, you know, a feeling that can be more compared to a normal combustion engine car, and the car then decides depending on the situation. You can surely argue for both ways, but at least you have the flexibility here. And now to our conclusion for today with the Mercedes EQC. From the styling, you either have more electric styling, or especially if you go for an AMG line exterior, it looks more GLC-ish. I think overall this crossover look works for a lot of people. I also, you know, talked about some people passing by, and they were all very interested or enthusiastic about this vehicle, so obviously it does work. On the inside, I think even better, they found an own styling there. Some elements, of course, you see that it's basically a GLC platform, and that's, I think, not a bad thing at all. The GLC is a good mid-size SUV, but I really like those unique styling elements they found there on the interior. For example, those really touchable horizontal fins there, and great seating choices they offer here. This is really high class, at the same time sustainable, and really different choices you want to have with microfiber, fabric, or all the way leatherette and so on. So really cool styling, and well, the package they offer, it could be a little bit better maybe, but still it works for 4 tall adults, and also the trunk space you have available is still somewhat okay. Maybe a little bit more height in the trunk would have been cool overall, but I think overall with the car you can very well use it as your primary vehicle too. Power performance wise, I mean here 765 Newton meters of torque. Not this one here, not under the hood, but you know, the electric motors then placed a little bit lower. So very interesting power wise. It was a great agile handling. I had so much fun driving this car, and that really speaks for it. The Audi e-tron, by the way, was also a lot of fun. I think this one maybe feels a little bit more agile even, and I think it has a little bit more class design-wise than the Jaguar I-Pace. The Tesla, they feel less agile, are also a little bit lower in the build quality, for example, are not as silent as the Audi and the Mercedes when you drive higher speeds, for example, as for noise insulation. Then again, the Teslas also have their special unique selling points with the infotainment system, with the Google integration and so on, and with a very calm design overall. The Tesla Model X, of course, very special with those captain seats where you can get in if you have the 6-seater setup. So all have their unique selling point. But I think now, after driving this one here, it comes close somewhat to Mercedes customers because it's a very comfortable ride. At the same time, they keep the Mercedes design styling elements. So I think this vehicle will work pretty well. What do you think? Well, and talking about the package again, with the trunk, we sometimes had the situation that it didn't close properly and had to push the luggage in again, because this one here rather comes close to the GLC Coupe than to a GLC SUV. But packaging reason were not the reason I found out they did not offer an air suspension. The reason for that was rather pricing, because it's, again, another coast-worthy option to get the air suspension. Plus, they did not expect that too many people would pick the air suspension in this vehicle optional. That's the reason they said they do not offer the air suspension here in the EQC. Well, I'm not exactly sure about that, because usually Mercedes offers a lot of different options, but they also try to simplify the option list here. Also, again, to be able, not that the price exceeds all limits. I think you can understand that. Well, suspension-wise, comfort-wise, you do not miss an air suspension here. So air suspension is great, well done. It's also not such big of a problem. And I want to close our conclusion here with the Oslo city view, and also our final conclusion on the consumption and the range, because as we've driven the car more and more and more, it became a more realistic average. The new WLTP figure, so the official driving cycle, is between 25 and 22 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And those new WLTP figures are also more realistic than the old consumption figures were. And the one we could score here ourselves is an average of 23 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That is somewhat comparable to the consumption of the competitors, yes. And as for the range, if you calculate here with the battery pack, we can say that the effective range then would be about 350 kilometers or 220 miles. So, those were our impressions here of the Mercedes EQC. Different things we've been showing you today here. I think, well, we enjoyed it really, driving this car, and I hope you also enjoyed it here together with us. Please leave us your comments to the EQC.
And now to our conclusion for today. These are really some special vehicles. The Tesla Model X still stands out most from these. It is the longest one and also has the bulkiest styling. It offers the most seating space in the interior, has the most unique concept with the panoramic glass roof, intuitive technology like the electrically opening and closing doors, and over-the-air updates living up to modern standards. The seat surfaces are animal-free only. That's how you design a sustainable interior. The Model X leads in range and drivetrain efficiency. You can drive it at higher speeds on the motorway without losing too much range. The acceleration in the performance model beats supercars. Downsides are the worst build quality within this comparison and the worst driving agility. Important is still the Tesla supercharger network. The BMW iX3 is the least unique one, looks so normal X3 alike, and it is much more normal X3 in so many respects. However, the driving agility makes it the most fun X3. And also in this very comparison, the iX3 feels more agile, lightest and more fun. Due to the low center of gravity, it drives like a super sports SUV. In our test, the drivetrain also showed good efficiency on the motorway. The iX3 is a good exterior-interior length compromise, shorter than the Tesla Model X and thus better suitable for the city, but already enough space on the interior. The build quality is great, however the design is throughout conservative. Base seats are SensorTech leatherette, however BMW does combine higher trims and options with the animal skin option sadly. The Audi e-tron is size-wise between the other competitors, has a great interior build quality and a straightforward user interface. The voice control is the worst in the test, however the touchscreen menu is easy to use. Audi has the least and worst choices of animal-free surfaces for the seats, weak and weird. On the exterior, you can choose between the SUV and sportback building style. For an SUV of that size and weight, the Audi e-tron has astonishing driving agility. It feels like a good compromise between comfort and sportiness. It indeed delivers both. It doesn't keep up with the range of the Model X, however the DC charging is quite effective, if you find suitable DC charging station. The Mercedes EQC seems like the biggest compromise, like Mercedes wanted to do something electric and didn't want to invest too much in it. However, it is still a very nice vehicle to drive. It doesn't offer too much interior space, however it shows a lot of very attractive animal-free materials on the interior. There's also driving fun. The range is the lowest in the test. So where does that leave us for today? If you are from the US, the choice is quite clear, take the Tesla, because it will be the cheapest option, while a lot of the features are the best, like efficiency, range and the unique cockpit atmosphere. Also, Tesla does not use animal materials on the seats anymore at all. The only thing you have to swallow that the Model X has the worst driving dynamics if you compare it to the German competitors. But it is really cool and fair that the Model X and also the other Teslas basically don't have any expensive options. In Europe, the Model X is more expensive than in the US. However, if you put some extra equipment into Mercedes, BMW and Audi, the price won't make a big difference anymore. The Tesla Model X is still the most unique electric SUV. If driving dynamics and driving fun is more important to you and the Tesla Model X is maybe a little bit too long or bulky, especially when you live in a more crowded area, then the BMW iX3 seems to be the choice for you. It was so much fun and also showed good efficiency on the motorway. The BMW iX3 has the most unspectacular concept, but it was really spectacular in our test. However, BMW didn't understand that animal skin has nothing to do with sustainable electric vehicles. The same counts for Audi with their e-tron. A great vehicle, but the German premium manufacturers haven't understood yet why people buy Tesla. Because of the why and not because of the what. The Audi e-tron stands for great interior build quality and a premium feeling. It delivers the highest premium feeling in the test. Again at the cost of using animal materials besides the base versions in Europe. The Mercedes EQC is a cool vehicle without a doubt and especially has great interior solutions. However, if you look at all the features, not so much more other than the personal taste speaks for it, especially because it has the worst efficiency and range. My choice? All four vehicles are desirable and fun, no doubt. It also depends on the concise offer you get at your dealer. Tesla shows that they have understood the concept of building more sustainable new cars, making efficient drivetrains and animal-free interiors. Ask your dealer about the steering wheel when order Model X though. At some point there might be a custom order available. So if you don't have problems with parking space and if driving agility is not a priority number one, the Model X is the choice, especially if you are one of our friends from the US. And it is also the vehicle that delivers the most unique experience, although the exterior design to me is not that appealing. The BMW iX3 would be my driving fun choice and would also suit more to European cities. That's the big advantage. It is really awesome, however you cannot take all options if you want to stay animal free with the seats. But for Europe, the iX3 low trim would be my choice, also to keep the price down and stay with the Sensatec. The Audi e-tron is still lovely, great drive, awesome seating comfort and great interior build quality, but they didn't really get that sustainability concept that much, and it's also really expensive. The Mercedes EQC is on the factual side the loser of this test, however I would still enjoy driving the EQC, but that offer would have to be the best one then from the dealer. Now tell us, which one would be your favorite and why?